All right, drum roll, please. The two at-large members for this coming executive committee is Sarah Sanders, Toby Leonard, TJ Hawthorne, Bill Sorensen, Mitch Zorn, and Bob Sucker. Nice. Now state fair. Sorry.
All right, so I'm the new outreach director. I'm excited about this outreach. It's clear for me. I've been a member of the LP pizza. And state fair was on first since I got involved. I like it. The state fair is great. The state fair is also the second most people in electronic equity developing connection, obviously, for one. Convention is obviously the most important, but state fair is the second for reasons. But the reason the state fair is so important, it's our single largest source of new LDN members. So we signed up for 15 members last year. I was there 7 out of 12 days. I was an extra. I still love the fair, so I was there 7 of they volunteering. And signing up is, you get like really good people. Okay. And, on my background, I'm a chemical engineer. I'm talking about water business, I'm a little bit shy. So, how am I doing this outreach thing? It's just like, I love this fair. Okay. You have good discussions with people, sign up members, it's fun. So, I look forward to that every year. And I hope you do too, because we need volunteers. Okay. We intentionally not put out these things that links to the state area. Conventions are the most important thing. So, obviously, we focus on that. Nobody can take care of what they've done. The state fair is first day August 22nd through Monday, September 2nd, just 12 days. And there will be plenty of opportunities for people to sign up. And again, it's fun. I love it. We have a great location, in our exhibit right next to us. There's the Miracle Birth Center. There's milk booths. There's music right near us. It's a good thing. It's fun, right? And I hope that you all will put out some information on it to help. Again, this is the second most important activities that we have in relation to health. And related to that, we have kind of a new initiative this year. We're targeting 3 county fairs, right? Minnesota has 87 counties in present role because they all occur on the same time. But we're targeting 3 different county fairs. There's Scott County, which is kind of like Southwest Metro. There's Washington County, which is either east or northeast. And the Framing, which is something on the chief. So that's late July through mid-August. We have those 3 different county fair events, and we're hoping that those will similarly be good new members sign-ups. Okay, and also it'll fit right in with having discussions with the public about some of the candidates that we're going to have on the ballot. Rebecca or U.S. Senate, and also some of the other people that we're talking about for candidate election numbers. And again, those are the three we picked. Scott County, Washington County, and the Miami counties are all good affairs, fun too. So we'll putting out something. If you want to get into financials, those affairs and you might sign up to outreach. Okay? But we're going to be doing some things to try to get better. County areas to be totally finished. So look for those on sign up opportunities. And again, I hope you sign up and help us. And so it's a time. Oh, yes. And two more. There is a Randall Day, which is June 2nd, okay, which is a Sunday. Everyone calls it Randall Day, so it's actually Randall Day, June 2nd, a Sunday. And then Pride Fest, which is late June, I want to say it's the 28th, 29th, but that's memory. That's would have been also. The petitioning window should be that's what first, 2 more. May 21st through June 4th. So it'll fit right in with Randall Day, for example, June 7th. So we'll be looking for people to help with that petitioning, because that is super important for us. Preserving our minor party status and potentially even improve. So simple elected, that would be great. The other question was going to sleep.
I think Seeker's great. If you want to get all this as volunteer, check it out every Saturday, Sunday. A lot of it is it's good. It's the great event. Definitely you might have a QR code for online silver. You just don't want to pay purchase.
Yeah, we're getting
Yeah, they're just looking. They can get to the event
yeah, last year fair had QR codes, we had QR codes for FPM.org, FPM.org/affiliates, FPM.org/join, okay, to direct people, depending on your discussion with them.
Yeah.
We had Ted Lanny, all those people could see him. And then for the sales thing, which will hopefully running with them, what that was. And then we also had little the people who aren't going to our things. We had little reprinted things of like the affiliates, parents, I was
just gonna say, just have a little something to get away or engagement or like
yeah. If you go into our SPs, for example, there's a one page outline on volunteers and it discusses if you sign up for the detail.
that's it. And now one this year. We're gonna have a most here. Big pay up in the middle. Why are you just we're gonna have pay links. We have pay links set to our CRM. That exists Google Pay, my Apple Pay.
Our denominator is 50 cents because we don't have any good nursing schools.
Alright, let's see. State Fair Committee reports. PBC. Continue. The tallness. Actually, I do want to say something about the Libertarian County Fair. I know that's kind of a hype for most people. We have most amazing rodeo that we installed them to show the rodeo. And as a bonus, come to the fair too. Okay, we are on number 6 proposal in the packet. That's on page number 8. Oh yeah, James. We get live here out here with students light shots. You see the students.
Sorry, it's just the hatchet. So we're for you. It's probably versus. Because the other venue, Thomas mentioned. This isn't really good. Oh, there we go. It's first thing. My God. As you enter the. What intense is surviving.
Okay. Number 6.
Just give me a second. I'm sorry. Pull the tab and. Yeah. I love it. That's why I'm in it for. Well,
I just.
no, not committed word. 6.
So number 6 is an additional proposal to change the health and medicine details. So we aren't doing anything to the current wording, adding extra wording. The rationale of this was that the FDA has a long history of restricting traditional herbal and natural medicines to various states, to the point of going after people, naturopaths, people who make things, and they're actively like to shut down or legislate to restrict the practice of herbal medicine. And so naturally we oppose that. So this adds to platform 10 in the second paragraph. It adds, including with respect to herbal, natural, and traditional medicine, which had not previously been mentioned at all. Anybody have any questions or comments? Mike.
I don't understand the necessity here. I mean, platform was already talking about irrelevant. And this is one of these regular areas of medicine. The FDA regulation comes up when there's only in the city, only the extent manufacturers are held to some evaluating the safety and they don't require an FDA food on some product. I think that there's a lot bigger issues over like the medical accreditation and medical licensing limiting supply of doctors, certificate of deed limiting the supply of hospitals, and insurance regulations. These are much bigger issues. They are included. So I don't see the need for publicity.
Okay, so it's fair.
But point out, it actually does address all those other bigger issues already in there as well.
Oh, great.
Yes,
Oh, look at that.
Carrie.
I am wondering what growth. I guess why the particular clarification would be needed, because if there's rights to make your own decisions regarding health, medicine, and safety, absolute. I guess I'm wondering how would that not already include herbal natural medicines? It's my one. I don't agree. I agree with it. However, I don't know. I see redundancy. So I would really love feedback.
James.
I can probably speak to that. I think it's for the same
reason that we call out specific things that are kind of libertarian-ish in other areas of our platform is because it makes us unique. You're not going to see the Democrats or the Republicans specifically mentioning alternative healthcare. It's just cool, in my opinion.
It's cool. I'm sorry, I don't go through me. Fine. Okay, yeah. Okay, add that. I see that in never really friends. Whenever you was up, like you were sorry, I just destroy it. That's written, I mean, there's like context that are true in it. So people were very like their frame of reference, what message means is like current healthcare system and doctors. So like I mean, sure we've all had the experience saying like a libertarian to somebody else, they're like, oh, it works. And you say like in this, they're like, oh no, not like weird substance. So Jesus makes it clear that saying not just the medicine that you think is normal mainstream, like that in region.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jeremy, did you have your
I'm still on it. You're saying. Obviously, there's terms, especially when you start with medicine types. I wonder if we can talk about this. It's all feeling like speaking about the private problem that many if we're not explicitly listing, is that it's moving from
Toby?
Actually, I'm very similar, but my thought is to include it in that reason by integrating from intervention, doctor, nurse, technician, all the class types of medicines that are included. We don't clear it kind of points by including something or excluding everything else. And this clarifies that we're not excluding. We're going to on all doctors, technicians, all the stuff that's in the first paragraph, the herbal, natural, traditional medicine. So we're broadening the scope and verifying that we're not just saying about the accredited doctrine, we're saying about everything.
Would it make sense then to add an amendment to this proposal where say including but not limited to, or not just adding more remedies?
Yeah.
It's like add and other forms of alternative medicine or something like that if we wanted to,
Emotional.
etc. Even shorter.
Including.
Yeah, including.
Yeah.
Can we move it?
Yeah.
Can I make a motion to amend it to include the words?
Including but not limited to herbal, natural, and medicine. With compound.
And take out with respect to. Alright, so I have a motion on the floor. Did somebody
Actually, verbal.
people?
Sorry.
Do I have a second?
Also,
Okay.
Totally made.
Toby made motion.
she seconded. One twin power.
Alright, so we have the minutes on the floor, adding but not limited to and taking out with respect to. Gain room for discussion. Going once, going twice. Okay, all in favor say aye. Nay. Hearing none, motion passes. Alright, so now we still have platform change on the table.
Can I call the question?
Yes, you can. Okay, so do
You vote on whether or not to vote.
okay. Wait,
No debate. Oh, he does need to.
yes, okay,
Call the question.
Toby, and then Carrie seconded. Alright, so we have the call to question. Alright, all in favor say aye. Aye. Stay,
Okay.
good job.
Thanks.
Still passes. All right, so. Now we are going on the platform. You guys ready to go chance? All right. By a show of hands, all in favor of the platform change, raise your hands for aye. Okay. It looks like we probably have 2/3. Right, so ayes, lower your hands, and if you're a nay, go ahead and raise your hand. All right. I admire your dedication. I'm just gonna throw that out there.
Amazing, what I said.
Yes. Good job. All right, that one passes. On number 7.
Okay.
Now, just want to check.
Well, it's been a long time. Complicated question. Right? We're doing it now. So, yeah, flood bylaws is codified also, in my opinion. So, like, separate the bylaws into ceremonies. Because maybe I do see freeze or. Committee members, the chair and the vice chair will continue to be elected by this bench, but their terms would be extended 1 year to choose. To address the concern that there is insufficient time at the state convention to get through all the plans. This amendment encourages that the platform amendments pop in even number of years. In elections, we want to set what our platform is. And we work on the bylaws issues in the opposition. Now, when we considered this last year, we thought, oh, but what if there's some really important bylaws that we want to bring up, a really important bylaw thing they want to get done? This does why I say, you know, if 80% of the committee, there's the platform committee bylaw in its off year, said this should come to the floor, then it can. So it's got to have a super majority of the committee to do that. The way we would structure this is that the bylaws committee members would be elected even number of years. And they could bring forth any proposals they receive at the following convention. Then the same thing for work. The bylaws committee could submit, it just is what the other. The one thing we need to do though is have a transitionary period. So there would be a special election in 2025 to elect members of the bylaw committee for 1 year. Does anyone have any questions? Jerry?
Is it a factor?
There are 5 members. Can you speak up a little?
Is it because of 5 members that the supermajority is 80%?
That, yes. Well, that is, like, you know, it is 5 members that we elect, along the chair and the vice chair are members as well.
80% seem like an arbitrarily high threshold.
It's meant to be very. So I didn't want it to be unanimous, but near unanimous. Were there any amendments to this? Scully, we talked. You might have.
Yeah, but, well, I'd like to basically scrap the whole voting. I think we have a small enough room here, and everybody should be able to earn on platform and violence. I think the very shallow nature of this, the total that you see, estimating the credentials indicate that is true, that we, everybody representing their own issues in that committee. And I think that the way to get our platform and bylaws you mentioned, judge them based on a all member that you can see because all concerns for whatever reason and then help the NMP to be considering voting for membership on the PGC many more members on the joint. Democratic Party has 180 members on their platform. No reason that anyone that wants to join the committee should.
Point of order. The member is being dilatory. I would ask that they rein him in. He's filibustering.
So I'm just getting my involvement here. I am offering an alternative proposal, addition to the LPM bylaws. 7.1, all individual members are allowed to serve on the DTC and also from Senate for the convention for a minimum of 10 minutes or 1 hour divided by the number of individuals who want to present whichever is less. And I would eliminate 7.1, 7.2, 7.4, 7.7, and replace 7.5 and 7.6 from 7.2 and 7.
The last two provisions are retail. That how it works. 7.6 and 7.7 are in.
Yeah. If you don't,
So some motion. Do you want to move that as an amendment to this proposal?
yes,
You do. Is there a second? There we have a second. Can I get a copy of that text, please, so I can get up on screen?
Privilege, Mr. Chair,
State your point.
is the motion to substitute the ending motion from the PBC with the new text from the member?
It's not bad.
To amend it the institution.
Well, this. So. Mike, it might be helpful if you up here just so we can get up there as we send this here. You didn't present it in style. It is in prices. So. First, are you recommending between the left? This is a mess. It's part of the problem and platform about which should prove this meetings, contemplation of the issues.
No, that you just come up with a quest. They do put out like a call for. It's not by a matter of policy. It's just tradition. It's just so it could be considered to that. No, they don't have access. Yeah. To be in the show. Well, yeah, we don't, it's a committee. The committees need to be, they're selected by the membership. Are committed to the purpose of their committee. But yeah, I see the need part of it, but I don't see to. Think that the committee gives some yeah, easily, and they do. It's the thing that students read every year things, these long like documents, but he never makes motions. He never joins the PBC, all that stuff.
It's going to play here. It's well. So you know worthwhile policies. So he wants more seated. And like in this case, consumer stuff and I can't see just it is garbage. Sure. Like literally is like it's the last 7 brain cells that changes. So that people have been how many it's not
They can go on and
No, but I mean, like, in the I'm not saying, giving many and listening, or some just something, I got to whatever the factors. Okay, because my was through his parents, and it would say, you're the stable, or they're all actually on this. I know. Yes. Whether that would already go to the it's controversial. There's but couldn't say that's better than the rest are all here.
Yeah. So what is that? Some things because is he like proposing to take it out like
he wants to make it so that rather than a committee, the PBC is just a line of people. Anybody who wants to show up is part of the meeting. And that to me is not a committee. It doesn't meet the definition of the word committee. The committee is committed by the people who are
yeah.
who
Very bold of them to just drop this.
he does it every year, man. It's not just this. It's Americans against monopolies or whatever. He taught this literature at every convention. If it's not, it's something else. I don't know if there's more than one.
So it's not just libertarian. It's
I don't even know. I don't know what his organization does, but he comes to our convention every year. There's another guy at the national convention who comes he runs for chair and just talks for half an hour about nothing. It's just it's completely bogus. I have no patience for it.
that's going.
Okay. So for us,
So
hey,
I reserved a place on this hotel, didn't go through,
okay.
but they had place for me, they said,
Okay.
they gave you the same price. But I thought I'd try to submit, I got went through, so, me, everybody else, it's great, my president here, go tell this person,
Yeah, I haven't heard you.
I had no question.
getting my patients.
That's real.
There weren't many rooms left, but there was, I wanted to get 2 queens. One goes, this is with king size to that. So I went in there and
Did you were you using a VPN or anything like that? You were kind of
I think so. No.
Yeah. The only time I've ever had a weird credit card transaction like just weirdly not go through was that it was my VPN something.
oh,
It's not even spending bucks. So like there's no tiny hand at all.
they couldn't find me anywhere on his list.
And like I mean they sent me a list of people who are registered now. Who got through the registered. I remember you you registered probably? I don't
Translate, I think, right.
yeah, they sent me a list long ago. Things that you aren't, so you probably weren't. These are my hands. We are James not here anytime for some reason. Because I was from the reason here. Oh. It's the one time in companies, there's the Chinese repairing individuals. Even if that's it's just called like
United consent. He had him, so he's here, I'm here for me. He's the fucking
We're not gonna stop you now.
Mr. Lee. We'd like to ask that to withdraw your substitution. And that, for any years, that with the objections. Okay, this is with the understanding that there will be another, and
I would move to amend the proposal to add a 7.9, which states meetings of platform and bylaw committees shall be open for member attendance.
sorry. That was one. 7.9. What was the exact wording?
Meetings of the platform and bylaw committees, plural, shall open for member attendance.
Hey, Nick, where are you typing?
Doctor, that's
Oh, I was thinking refresh.
there's somebody in there 7.9.
Yes. For national. I can say that.
Do I need to refresh? For
It's all. I put it on.
oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay. There it is. I see it. All right. There we go.
Right.
Groovy.
Big platform and bylaw.
Yeah.
Did we get a second for this? Okay, would anyone like to speak to the movement? Person who moved this, Harry, would you like to speak?
Sure. I believe that the concern really is that that the PDC may be perceived as being closed or not open to kind of membership involvement. And so this would require the PDC to permit members to attend instead of leaving it to the discretion of the particular members of the PDC as to whether it's open or closed. So this would ensure that a member can attend, and then the actual function of the PDC could, will ask for public comment, just like the EC does when any member of the party attends the EC meeting, even though they're not voting. Most likely platform bylaw creation. Candidacy.
Any other comments? James?
I have a question, if that's okay, maybe for the mover, maybe for the parliamentarian. With this language, would it be permissible for the chair of the Platform and Bylaws Committee to limit public comment to a certain number of minutes per meeting or per speaker or something like that?
So as the chair of the current PBC, that's how I would recognize first the members. And I would, yes, then allow if they're public.
So there would be,
But I might be hesitant to set a time limit, maybe that could be the discretion of the chair.
Right.
You know, if it's dilatory, then you would cut it down.
as long as it's allowed, is my concern.
I think the chair should always delegate to limit comment. Mr. Otter.
I was just going to suggest, and I mean, I like the fact that we're opening up other numbers, but there's nothing to say that will be I thought it could be modified in advance of the meeting. So that they could attend.
That's what we
can have the
were
events.
just talking about, how we might handle that. We could have, I mean, I think there are different options that would be consistent with this. One, we could send out a notice to membership, are you interested in being on the email list for these meetings? That might be a way to handle it. Another way would be to just post it on the website. I think we could explore different options to be consistent. And the new CRM is good. He's going to be making decisions. But I that's my first thought. I'm worried that we're not going to be able to effectively go.
Because if you don't modify people, then I'm sure.
Is there another comment other than Carrie?
Eric.
Oh, Eric.
So Jeff, the model that you're discussing here is exactly analogous to the model already in use. For the executive. There, I was looking at there's a single sentence I review. Executive discussion, right? By the laws and that's handled.
And I think we only send out the Zoom link to people who ask. That's true. And because I think we have some reason to tell us the dangers are on that way members. So we need to set that. It's gonna have to be complexity, but I think. Toby,
I would like to call a question.
question has been called. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor on this amendment? Say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay. Guys have it. Okay, we'll now vote on the amendment. 79. All favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Nay. Any abstentions? Okay, well done. Now, are there any other amendments to this post?
For information,
Yes,
we haven't put that 78.
we haven't voted on proposal set. I don't know what that's.
This new edition 7.9 is now just been accepted into this main proposal.
7.8. That is.
It's included.
If we look at it.
The entire bylaw is the motion, so we're not going to be debating each point. Yeah.
Just as restated, the proposal is because there's changes to in our proposal to section 7.1, 7.2, 7.3, 7.4, and 7.8. So we are considering them.
Unless we debate.
Is there any further debate? Seeing none. Let's vote on this proposal. proposal number 7 as we admitted just a minute. All those in favor of passing this proposal, please raise your hand. All opposed? Okay. Proposal is adopted. Thank you. And I'll let them know this. Now we have another amended budget report. Nine on the developments that happens to them. Great. And now, Mr. Cipher, who is the clear up proposal number 8.
This short.
Oh, this one is basically another housekeeping one. We're just clarifying that we're stating that remote participation is allowed for 90 meetings, XCOM meetings. It wasn't in the bylaws, and so we added it to specifically allow that. It came up in one of the EC meetings, or a couple of EC meetings. Whether remote participation is allowed, so we decided to add it since we are a metrocentric party, but we do have EC members that are outstate. We didn't require people to drive for this Exxon meeting. We've taken 3-4 hours to get it, 3-4 hours to get back. So we just wanted it in there that we can conduct our EC meetings, Exxon meetings, with no participation. Should be fairly simple. Any questions? Yeah. Questions? Wow.
Well, yeah, I don't know if this refers to something that I brought up, a couple of days ago, but, originally Robert's Rules of Order wasn't to allow for electronic meeting. And then they didn't do it right away because, in a meeting where you're with the actual people, you can see how people are interacting, you can see body language, you can, pick up information that you cannot get electronic. And I found myself a little disappointed. I mean, most people on our meetings, they don't, a lot of people don't even have attention, let alone any video. And I don't, we never be alone. And I just think it's really important to have a minimum, maybe a picture of yourself. And no video if you can do it. I mean, I don't think we should require this because a lot of people have the bandwidth. But maybe suggest there's something that this be an option to help other people understand better what's going on during the meeting.
Yeah, I think it's very valid. Anyone else?
I believe this is actually a great amendment because it allows, since they're open to any members, now we have an increase in participation of the general membership. So I speak for the change.
All right, thank you. I'd like to call a question.
Second.
Wait. 11 seconds.
All in favor, say aye.
Hey.
Opposed, nay. Alright, passes.
That was called a question.
Alright, so now we are voting on the amendments. catch up in the. Page 12. All right, by show of hands, if we pass the bylaw as is written up here. You guys are watching? All right, thank you. If you're in favor of this, raise your hand for aye. All right, go ahead and lower your hands. If you are opposed, raise your hands for nay. All right. Bylaw passes.
Nice.
Thank you. Number 9.
Number 9.
I think we only have 12. Looking last at the okay. All right, so number 9, page 12. You want to do this or do you want to do this? Is that your turn? Okay.
These are really complicated.
Eric, could you put your phone a little closer to your face? Thanks.
It's always true.
Yeah, I know you're tall.
Alright. Okay. This is in the major party status category. Okay. Some of the legislation passed last year and being looked at this year, there are checklists that the opposition parties, the regular teams that they're looking at, trying to say that they can get enough requirements. All this does is positions. Our bylaws have always served as our constitution, and in Roner, it mentions in 56.1 that, you know, in the past, some organizations had separate constitutions and bylaws. Preferred practice today is to have a single document, which is the Constitution and bylaws. So all we would do this proposal is that we would add the words constant in front of bylaws. And then the document would become for Constitution and bylaws. And when asked in the future, where is your Constitution? You can point at it. So it's all of these things. So it doesn't effectively change how we do businesses.
Chairman, it's being moved in order. Yeah, this is.
Second.
Or yeah. I like that idea.
Well, he's basically calling questioning this book.
Okay. All right. Would you like to call the question?
But if there's no more debate, then it's the same function.
All right.
Because calling the question requires a separate vote. So just yeah.
All in favor? Oh wait, I guess we need to raise.
Yeah.
I don't know. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I know that voice.
We all do. Right.
Okay. Proposal 10 is correcting some more wording in our existing bylaws. In the past, the way that we've done our executive committee meetings is we have gone over that this issue came up specifically regarding someone called the question. Okay. And someone called the question, and in Roner, that should be 2/3, and that's how we had handled it in the past. But someone, I will say in fairness correctly, looked at our bylaws, 6.10 and 6.11, and saw that lo and behold, 6.10 says that, motions within the executive committee shall default to pass by majority vote, unless noted otherwise, blah, blah, blah. Okay, and there was a correct decision that the call to question would therefore need to reach a majority threshold rather than 2/3. But there are huge implications, to this, okay? And among other implications are, what if someone were to motion to remove or motion to suspend a member, okay? With the current interpretation, which is a result of some legacy wording in the bylaws, which isn't quite so good. It leaves us open to a situation where someone could motion to remove a member, which is a pretty darn serious thing, and it would only face a majority threshold. And I will reference, for example, that, our convention proceedings today, as per our bylaws, we have a very simple statement in our bylaws. We have a very simple statement in our bylaws in 9.3, which says that the convention shall be run by Robert's Rules of Order. That's how we're doing it. And it's a very simple, concise way of referencing a very well-written document which gives standards for the thresholds required to approve motions of different severities, basically. Okay, so this convention is being done by Roberts, and the proposal that we have here is to, I will say, restore a practice, because we had been using language until it was, in fairness, correctly pointed out that our wording is poor, and that for the wording, it should just be majority, but that was never really intentional. So the wording here deletes this sentence, which talks about the majority, and instead references that we will run according to Robert's Rules of Order, newly revised, the most recent edition. Okay? Doesn't freeze us in time to today's edition of Robert's, blah, 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 blah. The correct name of Roner is, in fact, if you look in the first few pages, Robert's Rules of Order, newly revised. That's why we call it. So this is basically, there has been no problem. No one has abused this, okay? There hasn't been any bad decisions as a result of this. It's just protecting us that we follow the right standards for passing motions in the future. That's what this is. So I hope we're so that's the vote of the
James,
I move to divide the question.
That would be the.
do you have a second?
Second.
I'm sorry.
So that we would be voting on 6.10 and 6.11 separately.
So,
seconded for that.
right. All right, so we have a motion to divide the question.
So this,
So we're gonna vote on 6.10 and 6.11 separate.
that's what I'm moving. Yeah.
All right, so we have a motion and a second on the floor. When you.
Well, I don't know if dividing the question feels favorable. That's sweet. I think I should be.
Yeah.
What?
By.
I will if we're gonna discuss it, yeah.
It's not debatable.
Not debatable. All right, so we're gonna go straight to a vote. We're dividing the motions on the floor to divide the question. We do 610 and 611 separately. All in favor, say aye.
I
All opposed, nay.
lost. No, there's no way that was a majority.
Okay. That does not pass. Sorry, James. Good try. All right, we're back to the current amendment to the bylaws. As is. Do I have any questions from the floor? Yes.
Still curious about the rationale behind. James is really good, sure.
Well, that's already
yeah.
over. Ask about that later.
I'd like to speak in support of this amendment. I know that there was a bit of confusion this year and there was some real frustration about the opinion that came out of the JC. That particular ruling, noted that the bylaws are more specific than the general rule in Roner, and so the bylaws always trump. And that opinion noted that if that is not the goal of the body or the will of the body, that it should be a meta convention. So this is the opportunity to do that. That I strongly support it.
James?
Yes, I believe that the majority threshold set for a reason, and that reason is so to get stuff done. When the board is required to have 2/3 thresholds and things like that, it's just to divide it. And we have seen in this term things get done because of that majority threshold. I do support, clarifying Robert's Rules of Orders newly revised, the most recent is otherwise noted in these bylaws, which, if we remove the red line from the 610, then it would still be otherwise noted in these bylaws. I think my point is, I think the majority threshold needs to be maintained, but we still need to make Roberts like more clarified as the parliamentary authority.
Anybody else? Comments? Yes.
So,
You can give like a more specific example, anyone who wants to speak to like how stuff doesn't get done, but they're similar for the majority. Like I should kind of just see what you're saying in principle, maybe, but I'd be interested to hear what like if it's got that action say that or something. I'm gonna let Rob answer that.
Again, the exact background for when this issue first came up was during an executive committee meeting, and it was a motion to call the question, which per Roner should be a 2/3, and the decision was made, and I will say correctly for the bylaws, that it was instead a majority. But again, this leaves us very exposed because, again, someone could motion to remove a member or to suspend a member from the executive committee. One has done that, but the way this is worded, it would leave very serious matters like that open to being passed on a majority rather than a 2/3. And there are precedents elsewhere. If you look at the U.S. House and Senate, for example, they have different thresholds for passing different severity motions. So that's why, and again, if you look at, for example, the Elgin Initiative, there are precedents where they rely on Wilbur for matters like this. And it wouldn't be practical to completely rewrite Wilbur into our bylaws. It's like a county. It's that thick, so.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't see who was up first. Oh, you, okay, Travis is.
Just to clarify, I'm sorry, this is another question, we have a lot of questions. This would not make all votes of the executive committee 2/3, only certain ones that require it.
Right.
So we could still get stuff done with the majority unless certain things arise.
Right. Harrison.
So I guess you explain it, inflation,
Okay,
what things specifically would not, or would be subject to 2/3?
removing board members. Making motions with that censure.
Well, there's two types of censures, there's disciplinary, and most cases, no, let's just.
Okay. That's a good question.
Sorry, usually calling.
Yeah, questions.
Oh, he's not.
No, thanks.
Yeah, calling questions.
Madam Chair, yes. I perhaps can offer a word that we cut back numbers on what was required. So here's the principle, if you're taking away a right of a member that they would have had absent your motion, it requires a 2/3 vote. So members have a right to debate. In order to end debate, it requires a 2/3 vote. Members have a right to hold an elected position that they have. So in order to remove them from that elected position, it requires 2/3. So you can pretty much answer any question yourself is my motion taking away a right somebody would have had absent my motion? The answer is yes, it would require a 2/3 vote.
Thank you.
Okay, James, you got this next.
Yeah, I have two things. I would like to move to amend this, but I would like to first speak to my side of that story that Eric just gave us. The executive committee last year was comprised of like roughly 2/3 of one like contingent and roughly a third of like the other contingent. And we were having meetings that were lasting until midnight regularly, monthly. And the chair, being in that smaller contingent, refused to label anything dilatory or call the end debate or anything like that. And so, yes, the minority does have rights, absolutely. But the majority also has rights. And the majority of the people don't want to be in meetings until midnight because other people are acting dilatory in their meetings. And so, with that being said, I would like to move to amend this thing to remove anything in red there and add to the beginning of that, except in matters of discipline or disciplinary measures, motions within the executive committee shall default to pass by majority, etc.
Except for
Matters of disciplinary action. I would ask also Karen Ann to massage that language if it's not right.
Not massaging.
I just want $100. You're I mean, $100. Yeah, you think like.
All right, the amendments.
Yeah, that looks exactly right to me.
Okay, so now we're voting on the amendment. Do I have any discussion to that?
Oh, we need a second.
Oh, wait, we need a second. Sorry, we have a motion on the floor, we need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, Harrison seconds. So now we're talking about the amendment.
Right, I'm not going to make any motions, given that I'm visiting here, but, I guess I'd like to point out, it sounds like the real crux of what you're concerned about is preventing excess discussions. I would argue you'd probably be better served only require lesser threshold authority to end discussion, call the question. I don't think with this language that you have, that removal of a board member would be included as a disciplinary matter, because there are reasons other than disciplinary rights. I believe that plus just all the strategy disagree on that. Out of line for giving that, but I think this still puts you at risk of some pretty serious motions passing inappropriate low threshold, perhaps even at a minimally coming from the Secretary of Sustainability, this has some serious problems.
Thank you, Jeremy.
I would be a total slightly unnecessary piece of gentlemen. This amendment here in front of you, necessary. Robert's movement science. But it just seems like it's about autos. It's right, you know. I think rewriting our bylaws because of couple of meetings of office, that's,
It wasn't a couple of meetings that went on.
this is unnecessary.
Okay, thank you. Toby?
I would like to actually speak to the amendments, the other, but more specifically, we're libertarians. Removing rights and liberties is kind of against us right on the bat. So I think we should stick with the 2/3. Change it to the Roberts rules and stay with the 2/3. There will be glitches because of it, but removing people's rights and liberties is something that's kind of against us.
All right, does anybody want to make comments on the amendment?
Thanks. Well, worry on this current amendment, things. To me, personally, suspension or well, the member will fall through disciplinary action, but it's just like trying to.
All right, thank you.
I really liked what Mr. Zima said. I think rather than trying to account for every single little thing by having broad language around disciplinary action, I think it does make more sense to specifically call out a majority vote for calling the question. I think that's really the problem we're trying to solve here. And I don't think we should be dragging other issues into that specific issue. I will speak against this.
All right, any other questions? Once, twice, all right, we're voting on the amendment, and that's the Park and Green. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay? All right, nays have it. So we're going back to the original proposal. Okay. All right. Carrie.
I would move to amend to add the statement that motions to call the question shall be. And debate shall be subject to majority.
Right here. Do you want to massage that language with for second, third,
That means motions to end debate. A motion to end.
Motions to them.
Second.
All right, we have an amendment on the floor. It's the Park and Green now. Does anybody want to talk in favor or against the motion? Eric.
I will say that there was at least one incident, someone motioned to call the question almost before the debate. And in fact, someone who was about to pay for stuff and say, it's right at the beginning before it comes to see the chances.
Yeah, that's going to happen whether the threshold is majority or 2 out of 10. That was just someone acting dilatory again, and the chair should have called that person out as well.
All right, any more room for discussion? Chip?
Yeah, I will speak against this. Similar reasons there, I recall too many instances where the question was called, stifling debate, which I didn't think was finished. We had a proposal adopted in the executive committee 13 months ago. And there was pressure it was over a controversial proposal, which I and a few others were strenuously opposing. And people, Chip, so they want us to stifle to me. I'm very sensitive to not letting people's faces and purpose to the point that I actually understood what I'm saying. So I call it just calling a question. But I know there are people there want to find out their sin. Really spend the time doing that. I found we wasted a lot of time on the voting process. for the only question. So I have for the rights of fine orders.
Any more discussion? All right, I'm not seeing any right now. We're voting on the amendments in green. So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed nay. Okay, we're gonna do this one by a show of hands. All right. Raise your hand if you are an aye. Okay. Good. Okay, go ahead and lower your hands. All opposed, raise your hands for nay.
Twenty-one,
You're an eight.
21 nay.
21 nay.
21 nay.
And how many ayes?
Eight.
Eight. All right, motion, amendment does not.
Wait, is there controversy on the count?
It was 21 days.
Okay, I thought I heard somebody arguing.
I said.
21 nay.
and- But
So I should have really said 8.
okay. So now we are going back to the original posting. Does anybody else that hasn't already spoken on this want to speak on the original? Yes, somebody? Okay. All right, by a show of hands, and this will require a 2/3 to pass. By a show of hands, all in favor, aye? Raise your hands. Randy, please. All right. 31. All right, all opposed, raise your hands. So 31-7.
Tries.
Yeah. All right, this one passes.
Next question.
Stop saying that.
Fine, but my sales.
Smith never. He's being everything to sentences.
All right, we have 30 minutes. I love those. We have 2 more left.
Could we maybe read this?
We can do this quickly. I believe in you.
All right.
Okay. Number 11. Oh, I'm sorry. What?
We haven't done 611 yet.
Oh, we didn't vote to split them. No, that failed.
So we get it together.
All right, so number 11 is on page 14. All right, so this was one that I had brought to the platform of bylaws. It's a platform amendment. Our current A.6 is titled Abortion and Population. The national, I'm sorry, abortion, not addition. I don't know why I just said that. Abortion and population. The National Party, so the rationale for this is that this would modify the abortion language and platform and retitle the provision. The proposal would also eliminate the reference to FDC, which has not been in effect since 1997. So it's kind of outdated anyways. But this would help the state party platform be more in line with what the national platform is too. Since it's a pro-abortion, which is a rather contentious political position, by eliminating it, our state platform would not take a position one way or the other. So it would eliminate all references to this completely. One of the challenges that we had when rewriting this was that the current wording was, because it was abortion and population, it actually had a whole bunch of issues, and you could read the original, like what it was originally. Had a whole bunch of issues that were all just kind of swooped up and rolled all together. And so we wanted to preserve some of the things that it did say, specifically in like talking about forced sterilization. But then we also wanted to eliminate some of it. Anyways, so the markup proposal took abortion out of the title and calls it family planning and population control instead. It takes out the last paragraph, which talks about FDC, which, like I said, that hasn't been in effect since 1997, so it's fully outdated. And then it rewrites it to preserve everything that's already in there, minus the abortion issue, so that it doesn't talk about it at all. So the final proposal is we oppose all government actions that compel, prohibit, regulate, or subsidize sterilization, any form of birth control, or population control. And then we do not take a position on abortion other than to oppose government laws and policies that restrict the opportunity to choose alternatives to abortion. Okay. Would anybody like to go first on what they think? Yes, Toby.
Just on the basis of just pure philosophy, this is why I am in favor of the amendment, because it encourages people to have their own liberty on how they wish to go about for this issue.
Okay, thank you.
Specifically keeps it specifically states that we discourage government involvement in this at all.
I did propose amendment to the last line and explain myself a little bit. From other than, we do not take a position on abortion. And
That's exactly what I was gonna say.
yeah,
Second.
so instead of other than, you replace that phrase with and we oppose. Because as written right now, it's saying, do not take a position on abortion other than to both things are not abortion. So the things that are abortion.
All right, so we have an amendment on the floor. Does anyone else speak to or against that?
Second.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Let's get that stuff. All right, so now we have this. Now does anyone else?
Is it up there?
Yes, ma'am. Oh, sorry. So taking out other than to in green, saying instead, and we oppose government. So that's the amendment. All right, discussion, going once, going twice, or
Let's speak in favor of that, because the way it was written, I know actually did make it look like the position.
okay.
Kind of like really was countering and trying to get something. Great.
Anybody else? All right, right now we're voting on the amendment. That's the part green, and the other than two is crossed out. Oh,
I'm sorry, look at it, since taking abortion out of it, maybe instead of saying. Say family. Or sex. I take the word out, but. Yeah, say that. Don't be in. And.
There's already an
Yeah, family.
we'll have to do that. If we're gonna do that, we'll do an amendment after this amendment. Yeah. All right, amendment on the floor. Any other discussion for the part green? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay? Okay, I'm not hearing anything. That amendment passes. Now, Anita, we can do your amendment.
Oh, or change word to better.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, so I move to amend, rather than saying we do not take a position on abortion, it would be, we do not take a position on personal decisions regarding family planning.
I'll second.
Well. Since we do not take a position on.
Personal decisions regarding family planning.
Is that also referring to one That's been a second, Jeff?
James, did you want to?
Hold on. Sorry, up an idea. I want to make sure you get that. Second.
Sorry, Jerry.
Oh, I was just wondering if they're also sort of changing family to ordinary.
Okay. James, did you want to?
I'm
The amendment?
Amending, right? Still can say.
Has there been a second on my amendment?
No, not yet.
Okay, Carrie, can you articulate what you've been whispering to me, sir? So sorry.
Part of it, and we oppose government law and policies that seek to influence the personal decisions regarding the animals.
Oh, yeah.
There we go. The decisions
Regarding families,
regarding
and then striking the list.
regarding family plan with attendance. Starting out as a type including sheets.
It's like all of everything.
All right. So.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Would you mind analyzing the previous amendment so it's not part of the?
Oh, the and we part.
Yes.
Oh, you just want me to remove the green?
Remove the green and take out the, I suppose. Please stand up.
Does the blue strike through go away too?
Take other than you.
That can be moved. Yeah, I jumped in.
You just has to.
This part is not. That's part of this. It's part of this.
So what's in green is what we're.
Okay. Ferguson currently agreed is the amendment. Did I have a second?
Second.
All right, Bobby seconds. The current amendments on the floor. All right, any discussion from this? Yes.
I don't think it's totally cheap. So, to me, how I read it initially, when it said abortion, all that stuff, to say, we're not saying, I'll just trace the language, the media people saying, right, like, for abortion rights, I would be saying, abortion, or like, probably, so, pro-choice problem, or just say it, okay. I read it to mean we're not taking a pro-life or pro-choice stance. Either way, we're not saying either. I mean, at least my experience, that's an issue that not all libertarians agree on, right? I mean, I don't know. But now to me, it sounds like it's more pro.
It does seem.
It sounds like it's saying. That's just how I read it. Like textually, if I was like, pulling that up on a website and I'm reading, post government law policy, the C10 decision regarding family planning, I would interpret that to mean we pose restrictions on abortion. For instance, we pose the government saying you can't have it. That's how I read it. But to me, this like totally changes the meaning. It's not just like a taking out a word, changing its figure. So,
Thank you.
I respectfully understand your position, and I also want to state, I'm an abolitionist actually, so, not just on slavery, but on abortion. I think the portion is wrong. That's me. Personally, what I like about this is it's parties saying there's an ambiguity to this, where everybody who has a position on this position is welcome here, as long as you are not attempting to use the party to forward your personal, if you want to even use the term predilection on this one, because that's how divisive this has become, which is one of the reasons I have been drawn to the is because of how divisive it would be. If you look around, if the DFL Minnesota, don't you dare be pro-life or anti-abortion, and if you're Republican in Minnesota, and I can attest to the person of having filmed an event that Scott Jensen this last year came out and said the Republican Party has got to start looking at abortion in a different way, and they almost booed him out of the room. He didn't, and he came out and said, and I oppose abortion, and then made those comments. And what this does is it does leave it open. It is a little ambiguous, and it's going to draw people in to ask questions. What's your position? We don't have a position. And I don't mean to say that North Centers towards you. It's open. We're not going to tell you what to do. And if you don't think the federal state should be involved in telling you what to do either.
Okay, I'm reading his hands up first and then Carrie's next.
I would just say, I don't know why we shy away from the abortion. I like the neutral, we're not making much of a position one way or another, but when people come to party website, they want to know what stance is on abortion, letting that word in that helps show that we are neutral on it, versus this, what do they mean? What are they talking about by this family planning? And abortion has that clarity that, we don't have a hard stance either way. I think it's good verbiage to say that.
Thank you, Carrie.
I guess to speak in support of the amendment, I think the ambiguity comes as to whether or not somebody would consider abortion to be a form of family planning. When people who are pro-life, they say that's not family planning, that's murder. When people who are pro-choice say that's family planning. And so a platform that uses the language of family planning is more open to interpretation based on people who have diversity, but also is more open to candidates who are running on the platform and maybe pro-choice or maybe pro-life, and then they can argue whether or not abortion is considered family planning. But the central thrust of this is that we oppose government laws that seek to either increase or decrease the population, from health reproduction or to sterilization, that fixing it and refocusing it to family planning and population makes it broader to manipulation of the population with government pressure instead of one specific issue of the day.
I'm going to the people who have not made a comment. So, Mary, you're.
I think for sustainable includes changing, did say, said it already, strictly properly. It was all improvements to work. Whereas this, it was long that you have to plan the one they're not changed. What we did say was that it's from you split the argument, so primitives,
All right. Anybody else? One more time.
I just wanted to say, I completely agree with having family planning in there, that should be part of it, but I just feel like, because it is such a big issue, or, then there are gonna be a lot of people that, they're getting away from one party or the other, but there's one in each students, so they can just cross to clarify that you don't have a phase one abortion specifically, that we're out any planning. People might not fully understand. Sales this morning, but should.
Okay, thank you. All right, we need everybody that's had a chance. Does anybody that hasn't spoken, words, had a chance to speak yet, want to say? Okay, so we're going to vote on the amendment in green as is. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Okay, I would say that in majority. All right, so the amendment passes. Now we're going back to the proposal.
Yes.
That's like the secretary.
Is the word subsidized misspelled? Yes, it's.
This might be England, British.
Oh, right, yeah, probably ISA in there, yeah.
Question.
Sterilization too, you're probably right.
So before we have a.
Yeah.
What?
All right, any final comments on the proposal as we are going to be done with platform and bylaws in 15 minutes? For today. All right, anything else? All right, this is by show of hands. This one needs 2/3 to pass. So I need my watchers, my counters up and ready. All in favor of the proposal as is with the amendments? Raise your hand for aye. Cool. Okay. Go ahead and put your hands down. All opposed, raise your hands for nay. Okay, that passes. Sorry, now, yes, it is.
Madam Chair, being that we've been back in session for a while, I would move to recess for 15 minutes and take up final proposal tomorrow.
I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
Thank you.
We have a motion on the floor for a 15-minute recess until 5 p.m. We come back and endorse whatever candidates are left. We have a second. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Motion passes.
I think it would be slow, getting your concept. Scares about it, and then. You know, you kind of have your companies. The concept of. Like, just for the third like. Not too many far from. It's still right, Tristan. And it's like, what I'm just. Okay, so you know that for you, what?
What is it another second?
I'm unaware. Yeah.
I'm confused how the.
Now, if you see this. Happening and share afterwards. Show up to your attention needs to come up because people are still there for me. So I get it, but I don't want to get rid of our feelings. Like I could be pissed, but I have that. But that's there.
Yeah, that's how nothing is. I just three cats. Offer suggestions. So we don't, you know, purpose. That's why I think it's for.
Speaking way too much. So get next year and steer minimize. This is the only way to find should be straight up for English. So right.
So there's always something for a year. Which is that's all.
Because like
I guess my body is something which is.
all organizations should have us. Because that's how you get around it's not being used.
That's her. Yeah, there's three bottles. Then sure, I just said, I'm the virtual subjects. Good. I read the caption. He's right. And let's be the first time we never fired the hospitals. Pause, if you're on all the choose words, several it's lots of people here. Lots of sun. So it's stay underneath. No, which is right. Yeah.
So this is the next result of the years. We talk.
Whatever you choose. Do that here. No, why everybody knows this.
You're not.
See how I'm sweating into the then wait. Sure. Yeah. It's like you. And I mean,
I just strongly draw. Helping my balance of salary. Oh, here.
it's not like you're certainly a child. Well, and I press for you. It's fine. Even though we have to tell them for us to listen. See them just to resist. Sorry, you can know this.
Right. I say they want to.
Doing good.
You're about to get cleared up. I did, I get. It's not actually what we can do.
Because it says.
When we, so then we, she called me up. She said, do it.
Saving one of ours just concerned.
So I find it she.
I have some interest.
I have insurance. Yeah, it's it makes sense.
Found it.
He hasn't found
I
that.
get some like actions where. Real. Yeah. It's a piece cheap, 37.
Blast.
Yeah. Literally, it's legally gonna be, which we're there, so you can apply some of the.
So since that large house.
Maybe we don't like yours, it'll be just plow your way around. Or, okay, that's
That's my hands. Fine.
You can't make some sense here. But I'm But I have anything in your bylaws that's actually. Seems to that's not residents, says generally sure that witness is something likely to yes, which is like whatever it's not nature for or it should be watched out. Life and actions are it's strong guys on because they your no, my savings are high. We did that in other things. It's right here, it's so relevant.
Scale. I mean, they just has.
Yeah, we can buy later.
Like that's that. Sorry. It's gonna lie. It's
So it's so lots of energy. So there's so long by laws. Then at the very end, you have a back up to June. Your body right now. So then try also again. Right. So you want constantly. So something let's say our
Yeah, I'm not. So.
James. Can I go without James? James, what did you order?
I don't.
Chicken.
Chicken. Okay. Do you have to sit here for the games?
No, I won't need the projector. No.
Okay. The tables for dinner are as follows: walleye, chicken, sirloin. Or so just one of those two is sirloin, the other one's chicken. Each for both walleye. Yeah, so it's 14, 7, 7.
Hey, how many, so you got.
Ever those 28. Yeah. Depends on.
If that's 30. Just the
Number of people registered for dinner.
Karen Ann has one, and then we got that tonight one.
Did they speak that last minute one?
Yeah. It's
I didn't get that information.
really?
Yeah, no, that was between you and him. I wasn't.
Sorry,
Sunday.
I must have to me.
Okay.
They did. We can speak on the person at the table. Was that?
Yeah.
Okay. That was the last piece. We're not going. Oh no, we did ordinance and for instance we're going to do speech.
Yes.
Okay.
Go one or look at all.
No, that'll be after dinner because I'm gonna get here. Well, I mean, unless you want to do it. Are you gonna be at the dinner? I can't remember.
I didn't.
No.
I guess.
Yeah, the bartender's gonna be for
Yeah.
bartender's gonna be here like any minute. I think she starts 5 or 5:30 or something like that. So yeah, we can start karaoke super early if you want. You just have to run it.
Right, and like, I was thinking, if anything, you just turn the on in there for now and just let music run.
Yeah, great.
And just open up.
Yeah, that was my intention because I know like Karen Ann is pretty good at this. Not, I thought there were like more haters in here, so I thought we were gonna open the bar so that they could go and hang out while she was. But I don't think anybody's gonna miss it. But people are gonna want to go there. They like buy a drink, bring it over.
Right.
Yeah. Sure, Chris. Do you remember reading next week?
A bunch of beer in the parks. Listen, it's your second beer in a bag of wine. Wine wants to be seen.
Right, so they, it's not.
Shiraz, if you want to bring this, we'll have fun.
Yeah, I was just Karen.
Oh, really? You think do you want to do it right now? If not, we can.
Yeah, just after.
All right, fine. You should open that for us to check out.
Yeah, for you. Huh? Oh, yeah, I got it.
So I got drunk on Sunday.
Hey, Shiraz, do you want to know how to make an audio device from like try?
I don't try that first. Try that. Equalizer, right?
That kind of.
Didn't get there. Okay, were you on? So the thing is had that. You can also use browser settings. Speakers. Okay, so pick device. There you go. Sorry, thank you. There you go.
Hey, I got it.
There you go.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh.
In fact, did we find a name that I already missed? Road. I'm also a road. And this, where do you find out?
There should be something on the back of the tag. I just have a front dinner. Yeah.
We're a fighter.
Sounds good. Just push that in here.
On citing for business.
Forward from the studios that you follow.
No offense to you, I don't need the name.
You know where I'm just at. You know, okay, but that. What's wrong? So, assisting. You were checking convention. It's like I should be in the. So, I think you're pretty much agency, found something to just to I need
So I'm gonna forget the device.
Right, I have just a couple of more announcements. Don't forget, we have silent auction items over here on my left, your right side of the room. We have a
Do you remember one?
flare launcher, some pad, other things, a generator. Anyways, good stuff. Check it out. Also, don't forget we have t-shirts available that Joey would really like to not have in his garage anymore. So they're $5 the shirts, except the flame rower shirts. Those are 10.
Very many.
So it's an extra $5 for a shirt.
You know, fucking.
Also, one other thing, tomorrow we are going to continue with we only have one left in the pact. If you notice, if you look at the culture pact, this one last proposal is 20 pages long. So if you wouldn't mind, just for the sake of expediency, look over it tonight, so that we can maybe not in entire remaining time.
Not really on behavioral rationale. And you only had to include everything that you could be remote with, like.
Yes, it's great for voting, and it's, well, anyway, read your packets. So we're also to the candidate endorsement. All right. people who are seeking the endorsement from the Libertarian Party in Minnesota to run for office, if you could just please stand up and then come forward.
But the real Libertarian, look at it.
Yeah, take it over here.
Would you guys like to say something?
Just
Ladies first. Yes.
Let me get this.
Thank you. My name is Mary O'Connor. And I've been to run for school board center, school district 2D6. And probably like spend a lot of time on both issues, which we should be doing. And should be just last week on academics. And the peers paper.
Right.
So I would I usually in the local paper, some people usually have all candidates and CSTD actually they usually have this that they put on their data. And so this, I don't do real lot, but most usually has a base. So I try to get into the base. But I don't do a lot of the campaigning times. If there are 3 openings, the tax school board, I will get 3 Libertarian in there. They're really good. So if it is not district, I sure I could offer run this decision. Thank you.
Okay, guys, so what I do, I joined the party and came up here. Got the endorsement. I don't think it's really contested, obviously, but what I really want to spend this time is asking for your support this time. The petitions are, like I was saying, depends if anyone's here. I have fun doing it. I think it's great campaign time, and it's not really that big of a deal to me. But I do like, if we have more folks, we can get out the outreach a little bit more. I've got a few dates. I've already got a few things set up. Another date that will be coming, but May 31st. I have American Legion Hall Reserve, and this is a community event, so I get hall fee. So what I plan to do here is have a petition party for any third party. So I'm reaching out to our juniors campaign as well, and any third party, obviously legal marijuana now, guys need to support regular stuff going on. June 2nd is annual day. Already talked about that. Robbie the fire game. Summer porch tours. I'm gonna do up north. So it's gonna be fun. So he's gonna send it again like soon. June 27th is Oakville Summer. That's parade. Last year I got in the parade, and also in September, North Hall, around. These are the only 2 cities in the district. There are 2 cities that I've lived my whole life. I really am excited about getting a Libertarian voted into our Minnesota legislature. I think once we get that done, the ball really throwing fast, because we get a Libertarian elected, and that's just so many folks. Just what is a Libertarian? You know, we listened to the media last night, and the naivete or ignorance, you know, what you want to say. You guys think this, you guys think that. Well, actually, so you know, I love having that discussion. My career, it's a little. I'm a DoD contractor. It's a weird thing that you're just taking us for an answer. I know.
I hope we get TJ for the.
Have the Libertarian spirit in my toolbox, and I travel with all over the place. I get comments, and I I'm sending the message. It's you. The Air Force person I talk to all the time. I'm inspired, really. So.
Candidate.
Even the one to. So. So what's that?
Hey, microphone is up all our hair, so we got quite our statement.
At this time, I need to entertain motion to suspend the paper ballots, ranked choice voting, and endorse both candidates by acclamation.
So move.
Yes. Wants to put this on paper.
PC.
Bill, second. Then Jane, negative.
1 second.
Yeah. They're just.
Get it.
All right, as soon as secretary catches up.
I'm ready.
All right, continue for discussion. I don't know who gets. There it is. All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Good job, guys.
Twins up.
Great, okay.
One more, we have one more step for both our candidate for US Senate, candidate for the legislature. So if you come here. Put to bylaws 10.7. Do you pledge that if elected, you will not caucus with either the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, otherwise align with these points on a permanent basis?
I do.
Okay, you're good.
Yeah.
Right, so at this time, it's 5:10. We're 10 minutes under 5. And our first speaker is, would you like to speak 20 minutes early? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Great.
That's right.
Hey. Yeah. She's just great. All that stuff.
Don't worry. Okay, we are adjourned until tomorrow morning, but we have two. There's already to leave.
Yeah.
I am tomorrow morning.
In our history. True. But they ended Vietnam and they created a war.
Are one of the most exciting things happening in American politics today. And the decisions as the same to allow the president to nationalize the Guard for overseas combat without a fish declaration of war by the U.S. Army. It's not like and as combat vets, you exactly why short of congressional declaration of war, you do not have the right to the National Reserve. You know what I mean? In other words, again, the Congress will always refuse responsibility for worse things. You know, my widow, I listen, I'm sorry, son, but your father had to die because we didn't want to lose federal subsidies. The PBS NewsHour came out and did a 15-minute segment on Defend the Guard last year. Everywhere they testified to state legislature, the Pentagon raced to send a two-star general to try to intimidate the states to sticking with the status quo. Do you know what that means? It means that Defend the Guard movement is in the war party for Earth. What's the voice on? Going to share wrong into some unnecessary war. Great nations do not fight endless wars. It's just true. And now the majority view. These wars do not serve the national interest, only narrow special interests. While the government can safely disregard public opinion on almost every issue, without the massacres, you're right, they just can't do it. If you really want to honor veterans, to save America, we've got to abandon the empire.
It's a very sound effort to bring back once again the constitutional responsibility of all of us.
The spell has been broken. America can be tough, but smart. Learn more at bringarchershelp.us and defendaguard.us.
Thought there was some actually really good background music playing in that video that didn't show up. But some friends, some liberty activists from New Hampshire made that video for us, just compiling little pieces of data that they found all over the internet. But because I'm so glad to be here. My name is Dan McKnight. I'm the chairman and founder of an organization called Bring Our Troops Home, and we are the national sponsors of the Dominican. And I'm amongst my people, right? When I'm with the Libertarian Party, I get to be myself. We get to tell off-color jokes. We talk about masculinity and expressing our own emotions and telling the government to get a lot of our lives. So I'm amongst my people. So thank you so much for the invitation. I'm so proud to be here. I'm 13-year veteran in the military. I'm a trained creed. I served in the Marine Corps and I transferred to the Army. And then I went to the Idaho National Guard after I done with both. And in 2005, after 2001, I actually enlisted back in the Guard. So I was going to go avenge America. I wanted to take the head off a snake. I wanted to do all the things that we thought we were doing when we first went. They wanted to defend America, spread mockery, and all the whole thing we talked about. And so in 2005, I was put in a Patty attack helicopter unit. We were shipped to Afghanistan. And we were attached to 82nd Airborne, the 10th Division, as National Guard, which was a novelty. The National Guard hadn't really been used in war as much as they are now. Now it's commonplace. Nobody wanted us there. 82nd didn't want us because we were weekend warriors. 10th Mountain didn't want us because we were part-time soldiers. And nobody really helped us. Even we were the ones that were laying down all the air support for it. And so I had 12 men that worked for me from the Wisconsin National Guard, and their boots were wearing out, their body armor was failing, their uniforms were torn, and we couldn't get any support for chain of command from 10th Mountain or 82nd Airborne to get new supplies. And so out of frustration, one day I grabbed a satellite phone and I'm deep in northeastern Afghanistan, the Peshawar Valley. That's the part that's right up by Pakistan, where Korangal Valley was at. And I climbed to the top of the mountain and got a real clear signal on that satellite. And I called my friend again. And the governor of Idaho answered the phone. I got his personal cell phone number. And I said, Governor Risch, my name is Dan McKnight. I'm a sergeant in the Idaho Army National Guard. I'm in Afghanistan. I don't have your attention. Dan, you've got my attention. And I told him what's going on. I said, you're the commander-in-chief of the National Guard. You've got Idaho citizen soldiers that are failing in war right now because we don't have troops. I need your help. And he goes, Dan, I've been the governor for a minute. I was just appointed governor. I was lieutenant governor last week. Our governor went to Idaho to go work for the Bush administration, or went to DC to work for the Bush administration. He goes, but I do understand the Constitution. I understand commander-in-chief of the National Guard. I don't know what to do, but I'll do something. Satisfied, I hung up the phone. I walked back down and went back to work. And 2 days later, my battalion commander, Lieutenant Colonel Collier Lipple, a man who I have no love lost for, called me and said, I don't know what you did, Sergeant McKnight. I don't know who you called. There's a shipping container on its way from Idaho right now with all the supplies we need. Now give me your goddamn satellite phone. And anybody that's a veteran understands that's the military in a nutshell, right? You don't show the brass, no matter how incompetent they are. And so I always held Jim Risch up on this pedestal. This governor, this short man, he's about this tall. He was a hero to me, right? We reached out for help. He understood his role as the commander-in-chief. He understood the Constitution, and he went to work with us. I got hurt in Afghanistan. I came home, and after 13 years, the military didn't want me anymore, which is fine. I didn't want to be there anymore. I was angry. I went underground. I lost my business while I was deployed. Came home, broke, divorced, foreclosure on my house, business gone, motorcycle. But through Marine Corps spirit, I'm too dumb to remember what happened yesterday. And so I, eventually put myself up by the bootstraps. Started a new business, got a new job, met my new wife. went to the Dominican Republic on our own, and somebody on the way out the door said, "Hey, read this while you're there." And I put it in my bag, and I was laying on the beach, bored out of my mind, restless, and I pulled that book out, and it was called Fool's Errand. Has anybody read Fool's Errand? The great Scott Horton wrote it. And I started reading the book, and my beautiful wife is asleep on a beach chair next to me, and I'm yelling at the book. Yelling. Because finally somebody had put it in words, in print, what was going on in my head. I got angry. I got real mad. And I got home. I read that book in about a day and a half. And I looked up this crazy Scott Horton character. I didn't know who he was, never even heard of him. And found his phone number because that's what I do. I like to pry into people's business. And I called him. And I said, "You ruined my honeymoon." And I explained him why, and he got a good chuckle out of it, and we become friends. And he encouraged me to use my status that only veterans have, to use it to do something to further the cause for peace in America and proper policy. And so then I started an organization called Bring Our Troops Home. And this is in 2019.
Amen.
And I started it because I got pissed off at one of my best friends from the National Guard was going back on his 5th combat tour. 5th. And every time he came back, I didn't recognize him. He became more and more different from the man that I knew and loved. And I got angry. And so I said, "I'm going to reach out to Jim Reed. He's no longer our governor, but I've been watching his career silently. And he's now the chairman of the Senate Committee on Foreign Relations, the second or third most powerful man in foreign policy in America." And I said, "I'm going to reach out to Jim Risch again and see if he'll just advocate for peace, just a little bit, try and end the wars that have been going on for 20 years, just do something." But I didn't know how to reach Jim Risch, so I wrote an op-ed. And I got out my box of crayons, and I wrote it as best I could, using my best penmanship.
It's a meal.
What's that?
And a meal.
That's right. And so I sent it to all the newspapers in Idaho, and I don't know what the hell happened, but 8 of them picked it up and published it. And then Jim Risch came to town a week later, and I went to an event. I called a buddy of mine, not a Marine. He had a camera. If it was a Marine, it would have been a camera. Yeah. And we went, and I waited patiently for Jim Risch to deliver his speech. And at the end, when they opened it up for questions, I stood right up, and my friend started filming me. And I said, "Senator Risch, my name is Dan McKnight. We had a brief interaction about 15 years ago." And he stopped me right there in front of this room of 1,000 people. And he goes, "I remember you, Sergeant Knight. I remember the situation. I read your op-ed last week. I agree. We're done nationally. We're done sending American tax dollars to a country that does not want us there, does not respect it. We will not be the world's policeman." I thought, holy shit, this is easy. This is easy. We should try this a lot. Jim Risch got on an airplane, went back to Washington, D.C. And if anybody knows anything at all about Jim Risch, he voted 3 times over the next 90 days to extend the wars indefinitely in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Yemen. In my head, earmuffs to the kids. Fuck this guy. I got pissed. And so I started this organization. I said, "I'm going to take 100 of my friends who are veterans and any state lawmaker I can find, and we're going to go to Washington, D.C. We're going to start capital for the NSA. That's figuratively
In Minecraft.
in Minecraft. And so we took 100 veterans from around the country and about a dozen or so lawmakers that we found that were sympathetic to the cause from all different states. And we raised some money, and we all went back there and held a 3-day event where we had speakers and we had veterans getting up and talking about the issues. And then we arranged for every single person in attendance, lawmaker and veteran, to go visit with their senator and their congressman and just plead, "Hey, do something to try for peace. Something. I don't care what it is." And they all want to take a picture with the veterans so they can send it home to their constituents and say, "We support the veterans," and all the other bullcrap that they say. And then they all dismissed us without promising to do anything. So we left. We went home, pissed, angry. Washington, D.C., it's lost. We can't fight there. We decided we're going to go back to the states, and we're going to fight the states. We're going to use the power of the 10th Amendment to do it. And once again, we opened up the Constitution and read and tried to figure out how we could do it. And in this process, we met Pat McGeehan, who we saw in the video talking about federal subsidies. We met him and learned of this bill that he had been sponsoring for almost a decade and had never even gotten a vote in a committee or anywhere else. And we said, we're going to adopt it. And so my home state, I'll talk about Idaho quite a bit. So I'm proud of Idaho. I love everything about it. I love
of how not Republican we are, even though we're the most Republican state in the country. We're governed by frauds. But we have this rich history of being on the correct side of war issues. Even though in recent decades, the Idaho Uniparty, the neo-lib, the neocons, the Republicrats, the Democrats, and whatever you want to call them, they find themselves on the same side of the war issue. And the further along we get in time, the closer they get to being aligned. They are truly the uniparty. I'd accept if our politicians were just agnostic on war. Just don't have an opinion one way or the other. I accept that. But there's no way for us to even claw back to that position. We can't accept neutral as an option. But in Idaho, and I'm sure Minnesota's the same way, we're no longer this agricultural dirt farmers trying to scratch out a living from the earth and feed our families and live a humble existence. That doesn't exist anymore. But what we have in ruby red Republican Idaho would actually probably shock you. Most of the federal prognosticators, people that predict elections, think that the Elephant Party is going to regain majority control of the Senate again this year. Now, we can argue if that's going to happen or if the Grand Old Party is going to squander it away like they always do. But we'll talk about whether that's going to happen or not later. I want to talk about Idaho tomorrow and Idaho from yesteryear. And you know that if Idaho had its own Mount Rushmore like your neighbors to the west do, and only elected politicians could be on that mountain and have their faces carved into the granite, we'd have two faces. That's it. One of them was from the World War I era, one from Vietnam. One's a Republican, one was a Democrat. Senator William Borah from World War I, he opposed the Treaty of Versailles in the League of Nations, rightfully.
Well,
And he led a group of people called the Irreconcilables, a group of senators that everybody hated. I call that today just the Senate, right? But back then, there were 11, 12 that were considered just horrible for the United States Senate, and they fought against the Treaty of Versailles and actually won. They actually won, keeping us out of the League of Nations. So Senator Borah is a hero of mine. And the other face that we would put on there is Senator Frank Church, a Democrat, very liberal Democrat, who came from Idaho. And anybody know the name Frank Church? The Church Commission is right. He's the one that basically exposed us to the CIA monitoring and spying on us. He also became both William Borah and Frank Church became the chairman of the Senate Committee on Foreign Relations. We were punching way above our weight class in Idaho. Very small state with two very powerful senators. And Frank Church used his position as that chairman to end the war in Vietnam and force America out of that war. So we have two faces. That's right. We have two faces on our Mount Rushmore. We could have had a third with Jim Rich. That bastard's opposed to granite faces, I guess. I don't know what his problem is. So our Mount Rushmore, it has some real bona fides. Let's talk about what we have today. Our Senator, Mike Crapo, been there for 100 years. In November, he'll become the chairman of the Senate Banking Committee. He loves digital currency, federal digital currency. He voted against the AUMF repeal, the one from 1991 that put us in the Desert Storm. Jim Rich is there. We obviously know he loves war, loves everything about it. We have two congressmen. Mike Simpson was a co-sponsor of an amendment to the 2021 National Defense Authorization Act. The amendment was called the Crow-Cheney Amendment. Does anybody know what that is? No? It was an amendment to the National Defense Authorization Act that forbids the use of one dime of American taxpayer dollars to redeploy troops home from Afghanistan. My congressman, Ruger, Idaho, voted for that. Co-sponsor. Our other one, our Liberty champion, Russ Fulcher, he recently voted against the 1991 repeal of the authorization of the military that put in Desert Storm. He's Desert Storm authorization. And so Idaho, this ruby red place is not really what everybody thinks it is. My notes just disappeared. Fast forward. Let's talk about other states. Let's talk about Minnesota first. Let me get down here. You guys have a rich history of being on the right side of history. Good or bad on everything else he did, but he perfect was your governor. Right? When Ronald Reagan wanted to send the National Guard to Central America to build airfield landing strips, Perpich said, hell no, not if you're going to use the airfields to invade Central America, which may or may not have been happening. But he stood up and said, oh, I'm the commander-in-chief of the National Guard. You can't have our troops. And it required Montgomery, Congressman Montgomery, you know, that guy, to pass an amendment saying that the governors could not object to the deployment of the National Guard. Purpose forced that. And it went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court actually ultimately sided with the Department of Defense, but it opened the door for our bill. So that was decades ago, and it's paying fruit today. Your former governor, Jim Ventura, he's the first former governor to endorse the Guard. Right? He's still right. He's got skin in the game. Right? Navy SEAL. He only served for, I don't know how many, 15 years as a SEAL.
He was a frogman.
A frog, you are correct. And so, you know, we've got some history there. Let's go way back in time. Charles August Lindbergh, Minnesota man. Everybody knows him, right? The father of the famous aviator. He said this: there are interests in America who would rather lose American lives than their own dollars. That's a pretty tough statement. Another fun, important fact about Lindbergh: he opposed the Federal Reserve. So now, let's go Minnesota. Ernest Levine, congressman from Minnesota, and a future senator from the Farmer Labor Party, a Spanish American man. We're going back a minute now. But his campaign slogan, America First. Sound familiar? Right. He said, I volunteer here right now in Washington, D.C. to lead an untrained but warlike war voting company of volunteer congressmen into the traitor. Let 100 members enlist some regiment for war. When you vote for war, send your name to Uncle Sam as a volunteer. Let us not send our boys into foreign wars unless we're willing to go with it. Holy crap. Where's this guy at? Minnesota Senator Eugene McCarthy was the only Democrat brave enough to primary Lyndon Johnson in 1968 in opposition to the Vietnam War. So Minnesota has a rich history, right? We're walking on pretty hollow ground right now. Another true statesman, this time from California, his name was Hiram Johnson. He said this: there are remarkable and singular apathy of our people, as apparently we are about to enter a world cataclysm. Our foreign policy, or rather lack of it, has destroyed our national fiber. Back in the consciousness of our people, even now, when we are right up against world war, is the belief that it's all some good game after all. We are really in another one of crises with which we have become familiar. Boy, isn't that the perfect description of how we talk about Ukraine war right now? It's just another crisis. It's not war. It doesn't matter that we're killing a generation of men, that they're conscripting 13 and 14-year-old men to fight wars that we're funding. It's just another crisis to us. I don't know if you saw what happened on the floor of the House today when they passed the Ukraine funding bill. The entire chamber broke out waving Ukrainian flags, clapping and cheering. It's the most disgusting display of anti-American sentiment that I've ever seen in my life.
Treason.
It is treason. Our government spent more than $170 billion and shipped some of the most destructive and forbidden weapons of war to Ukraine. And nothing we send them will result in Ukraine winning that war. There's nothing. All it's doing is extending the war and killing more people. We are at war now, literally, with a nation that has the largest arsenal of nuclear weapons in the entire world. And the response from most Americans is, it's the worst that could happen. We've become so used to crisis. We've become too used to the news of war while insulating ourselves from the worst consequences of it. So when we're presented with the real risk, a potential global cataclysm, we just simply shrug our shoulders. I don't know what it is. It's dry air here in Minnesota.
Ironically.
We dismiss the risk of nuclear war because we refuse to believe it's even possible. But I promise, the day that Joe Biden committed us to that war, nuclear war did become possible again. Why are we so apathetic as a population? To answer this question, we kind of got to leave the topic that we're here talking about today. Why are we so apathetic? Let's go back to, Hiram Johnson again. When he voted and debated against the Espionage Act of 1917. We can all agree that was probably a good position to take, right? What happened recently in the last 2 weeks with the Espionage Act of 1917? I expect someone in the Libertarian room to know this. They expanded that spies, so that was the beginning of it. But 3 weeks ago in Great Britain, Julian Assange, he had the last chance to fight against his extradition to the United States of America. What was he arrested on? Espionage Act of 1917. What was his crime? Journalism. So why are we so apathetic? Let's just think about this for a minute. Johnson said this. He said, in our tenderness for democracy abroad, we might forget democracy at home. Think about that for a second. He also said later on, they have been picking our pockets about the press. At Assange hearing, okay, so for 5 years, Assange's been jailed at Belmarsh, which is one of the United Kingdom's most harsh prisons. Before that, 7 years, he was locked in the Ecuadorian embassy in London. He's been persecuted under the Espionage Act of 1917, the very same law that Hiram Johnson fought so strongly against. He exposed the lies about governments that they were telling about war and murders being done and executed by the government. Why are we apathetic about war? Because we can't even tell the truth about it. Compare his courage to the stenographers and the professional liars in the corporate press today. One of them receives accolades and prestige, and the other one receives a death sentence. When you're not dangerous enough to be killed, but you are loud enough to be troublesome, the war party will work to tarnish you and tear you down and malign you and ostracize you from the public square and even from your own social circles. That's always been their modus operandi, always. And it's rare indeed that anything, any speech today, ever from any politician, any pundit, any talking head, that doesn't condemn Americans like you and me who would say, let's take care of our own first. They call us selfish and provincial. They call us tiny, small-minded, isolationists. I'll wear those name tags. I'll wear them. If it means that the United States war machine is not involved in wars in 117 different countries in the last 2 decades, I'll take it. Restrained foreign policy and the jealous guarding of traditions and our institutions, the passion for our land and our liberty, these have all become grievous sins. We're told that our past affords no precedents, that our history contains no lessons, and that all of those who have passed before us, whose names that we revere, spoke nothing but empty words, and that their counsels give no guide to us today. So we've been living with this perpetual and continuous warfare for over 2 decades now. Raise your hand here if you've been called a traitor for upholding the Constitution and insisting on the same from the ruling class. Veterans in the room, raise your hands. How many of you were, if you were to speak up against the global war on terror or Vietnam, would be considered heretics in your military circles, right? I know that I have, and it's because I listen to the guiding counsels of those who have passed, like Ernest Lundeen and Charles Lindbergh and William Borah and George Washington and James Madison and living legends like Ron Paul, or even closer to your home, like your former governor Jesse. I listen to their words, I listen to their counsel, I listen to their experience, and I apply it to today. When our enemies attack us, it's because we're right. Right? It's not because we're crazy. If we were crazy, they would ignore us. They attack us because we're right. They attack us because we're Americans. They attack us because we're not shy about it. Right? We believe in this thing. Right? What did Joe Biden call it? You know, the thing. The Constitution. We believe in that. Right? It means something. We fight over process and procedure over whether or not to endorse a concept or philosophy or a common sense. We believe in the process. We believe in our founding documents. Ask any American mother in Kansas or Illinois or California or Minnesota if she's for peace, and she will say yes with all of her heart.
Yes.
Ask her if she's willing to send her son and her grandsons to go fight in the Balkans, to China, to Korea, to Siberia, to Arabia, to the Dalmatian coast, to Poland, to compel peace somewhere else. I promise you, she'll answer no just as promptly.
Fuck no.
Even that. It's antithetical to the American spirit to police the world. I truly, in my core, believe that. We are a great nation, but great nations, that we expand our influence not by force, but by example. Today, American soldiers are deployed to all of those places I just listed. All of them. Anybody ever heard of the Dalmatian coast? Yeah, where is it?
I don't know, they,
Balkans, right?
they breed Dalmatians.
I don't know if that's, I don't know.
Isn't that like the one war that Bill Kristol could justify?
It's the one war that Bill Kristol said was a success. That's correct. Boy, I can't believe we said Bill Kristol at Libertarian Party convention. Let's see. Americans want sovereign control over our own country, over our own borders. We want to put food on our table. We want to work honest jobs. We want to do it without the government putting weight on our backs. We want to raise our families. We want to live in the lifestyle that we're accustomed to. And we want to do it without state-sponsored social engineering. We want to keep our money. We want to keep our property. And we want to keep our own pursuit thereof. We want this for ourselves. And we give well wishes to the rest of the world as they figure out their own path. But as people, we will not wittingly sacrifice our children and their future and their prosperity to dictate how other countries govern themselves, whether or not liberty grows in other climates, or to remake the world in our own image by transplanting our own, particularly American system. That is the point of this effort. That is the point of the Libertarian Party. And there's a lot of wisdom that I've just spit out. I know it sounds like a lot of work sometimes, but each person in this convention should feel proud. You should feel connected to the history of the Minnesota people that have been anti-war, that have been pro-America first. And I know America first has been turned into a tagline of Orange Man, I get it. But there were great Americans that lived by the America first mentality before my friend Donald Trump in the back corner. That's what we've been doing for 5 years now. We've been putting principle into action. And here's where the rubber meets the road. And as much as I love the Libertarian Party, I'm going to ask you, putting principle into action. We are not, my organization, we're not a literary club, we're not a debating society. We're veterans who are tired of seeing our friends maimed and killed and destroyed in wars that our country shouldn't even be fighting. And that's why Bring Our Troops Home has adopted the Defend the Guard Act as our cornerstone project. Now, remember, a few minutes ago, I talked about that trip we went to DC and we all sat down. A dear friend of mine who was he was a representative in Wyoming. His name is Tyler Lindholm. I don't know if anybody knows the 6'9" Wyoming cowboy. He's a crypto cowboy at Wyoming. Anyway, he went to go see his congresswoman when we were in DC. And who knows who the congresswoman from Wyoming was? Liz Cheney, right? Tyler sat across from Liz Cheney and pled his case very respectfully. Asked her what situation would she support America coming home from Afghanistan and Iraq. And she looked him dead in the eye, didn't blink, didn't flinch. And she says, Tyler, as long as I'm in Washington, D.C., we will never come home from those places. Never.
Thank God she's gone.
Thank God she's gone. Let me tell you a little bit about that. You're going to love this. We knew in that moment that we couldn't fight in D.C., right? We left, we licked our wounds. And then we did the same thing that I teach in our political leadership class. We manned up and we doubled down. We went to war. Knowing that DC wasn't the battlefield that we were equipped for, we decided to go to the States. We didn't really know what we were going to do, but we knew that Cheyenne, Wyoming was a better place to fight than Washington, D.C. We recognized that Phoenix, Arizona was more hospitable than the DC swamp. The Black and Patina Copper Dome, the South Dakota Capitol building in Pierre was high ground compared to the steel and glass buildings surrounding the Capitol Mall that house all the defense contractors. And we knew that St. Paul, Minnesota provided a strategic advantage for a small organization like ourselves, better than slogging through the swamps of North Virginia. But first, we had a fight to finish. See, I grew up the son of an electrical union worker. My dad was the foreman of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. And during the summer, we'd go to my grandpa's dairy farm. And so I was a blue collar as they come. And I was taught to say, yes, ma'am, please, thank you. And probably the thing that I remember most of my childhood is being taught that you finish every goddamn fight. You don't start them, you finish them. And if you're not going to win the fight, the bastard better know he was in one. Right? So we packed up and we went to Wyoming. I didn't know how to fight in Wyoming. I didn't know what to do. But we organized veterans and Wyoming patriots in every single county in Wyoming. And we got the Republican Party to censure Liz Cheney in every single. Then we found a couple brave ones to go to the state convention and take those resolutions of censure to the state and strip Liz Cheney of every penny and institutional support from the Republican Party in her next election.
Yeah.
Were we effective?
Yeah.
Hell yeah, we were effective. Here's the best part. 3 of us. 3.
Jeez.
And none of us had our feet on the ground. I was in Idaho. My director of field operations was in Texas. My communications director was in Florida. Action. Principle into action. That is the key to changing anything. Anything. If I teach you something here today and you use it for something not liberty-based, I'm gonna hunt you down.
Promise.
I promise.
It's got a
Minecraft.
got a particular set of skills.
So on the way though, I discovered this living passion for Defend the Guard. And so after we got done taking the head off of Dick Cheney's wonder child, the butcher of Bethesda,
Liz McCain.
Liz McCain, we decided to go to work with the 10th Amendment Center. If you guys know that, don't know them, you need to.
Right.
And Pat McGeehan in West Virginia. And we came up with a bill to defend the guard. We actually modified it a little bit. Pat's original bill was only 51 words. Awesome, right? Yeah, I'm going to read the whole thing, the whole bill. The West Virginia National Guard and any member thereof shall not be released from the state into active duty combat unless the United States Congress has passed an official declaration of war or has taken official action pursuant to Article 1, Section 8, Clause 15 of the United States Constitution, period, and a bill. Wow. One word, 51 words, so clearly written. But as a Marine, I can make it even easier. The National Guard will not put their boots on the ground until Congress puts their name on the line. 19 words. I like my version better. See, the National Guard now, as of 1903, this is where it gets crazy. I'm not going to get into the weeds, but the purposes of the National Guard are to serve now, or they're being used synonymously as the active militia of the state. I don't like that definition, but that's the world we live in. So we get to play with that a little bit. And the militia clause of the Constitution gives the federal government the clear authority to call the militia forward for three purposes. What are they? Does anybody know? To repel an invasion, to put down an insurrection, and to enforce the laws of the Union. That's it. That's the only thing the federal government can call the National Guard into active service to do. Where is war that has not been declared fall into that trifecta? Nowhere. Right, but a proper declaration of war by Congress, signed by the president, becomes the law of the Union. So if America must go to war, and our representatives with our authority have voted on it, then the National Guard should be the fighting force of America. They should defend America. But not until my representative puts his name on the line first, because if it goes bad, I need somebody to hold accountable. And the president's never going to be held accountable. So that's the core of the Defend the Guard. Now, I don't want to get into the weeds with Title 10 or Title 32 or the Supreme Court decisions that are affecting it, but know this. We get passed in one state. We're going to the Supreme Court. It's going because that's where it has to be settled. And we want that fight. We want the clarity. Right? We don't always need someone to agree with us, but we do need clarity so we know who the enemies are.
Amen.
When was the last time Congress declared war? Let's talk about that for half a second.
World War II.
World War II.
Who was the enemy?
It was the Czechoslovakia.
You're close, closest. It was 1942, Romania, Hungary, and Bulgaria. That was last time. It was World War II. But 83 years ago, how many times have we fought in war since then?
10,000.
On their fingers and toes, again, from a Marine, so I can only go so high. But I'm going to go up with a little list that I just made before I came downstairs today. Here we go. Korean War, Lebanon crisis, Vietnam, Bay of Pigs, Cuba, the Dominican Civil War, the Korean DMZ, Lebanon again, Grenada, Libya, Persian Gulf tanker wars, Panama, Gulf War, Iraq, no-fly zone enforcement, Somalia, Bosnia, Croatia, Herzegovina, Haiti, Kosovo, Afghanistan, Yemen, Iraq again, Northwest Pakistan, the Somali Civil War again, Operation Ocean Shield, Libya again, Uganda, Iraq 3, Syria, Libya again, Djibouti, Africa, Kenya. There's 33 that I just came up just with pen and paper, crayon and paper. The National Guard makes up over 50% of the total force protection plan of the United States. Removing that piece from the battlefield by forcing Congress to do their job has attracted some very interesting opposition. So every time we go to a state house, we get the bill introduced with a champion. We go to a committee hearing. That's the first process of a bill becoming a law. And we show up with veterans from the Cold War on Terror, Vietnam, the American Legion, VFW, activists, constitutional experts, family members of veterans who have lost their lives in war from the after effects of war. And they're to testify against us almost exclusively, almost every single time. It's a single person, a 2 or a 3-star general in his dress uniform or her dress uniform with a chest full of medals and ribbons. And they say things like this: if this bill passes, they'll defund your National Guard. You're gonna lose jobs in your state if you pass this bill. They say things like, sure, the Constitution says that Congress has the authority to declare war, but we just don't do that anymore. I'm sorry, we have a process for that. It's called an amendment. They say things like this: when people enlist in the National Guard, they know what they're getting into. They want to fight for their country. That's the most callous thing I've ever heard in my life. Well, don't say that the people that are testifying against us 2- and 3-star generals, the adjutant generals of the state National Guard, or 2 less. Most of the time is a professional paid lobbyist for the National Guard Bureau in Washington, D.C. And their job is to advocate for more and more and more and more federal dollars for the National Guard in each state. So when will we tell the federal government, you can't bribe me with my own money anymore on this issue, on any issue? They hold the dollars in front of us that they took from us. It's disgusting, and we've got to put a stop to it. The National Guard Bureau has threatened the Speaker of the House in one of the states we're working in that if he even assigned the bill to a committee before this uncut the next day, they would close a training base in his district and 600 people would lose their jobs. They're serious. They're here to play ball. But we have some friends in Washington, D.C. who sit on the Weaponization of Government Committee, and they're waiting for one of those people to put that threat in writing. And then they're going to pull their ass right before that committee, and they're going to embarrass them. They're going to question them on what authority they have to do those type of threats. So we're looking for one champion to stand up and force that issue. Force them to take dollars from us. Liz Cheney herself said that she would see to it that Wyoming lost 2 C-130 aircraft if they even heard the bill. I don't know if she had authority anymore. To date, we've taken Defend the Guard from 1 state, West Virginia, to over 30 states with active bills. It's been 5 years. Took a few years to gain traction, like all good legislation does. Constitutional carry took 7 years before the first state would even hear the bill. Now it's in 28 states, I think. It takes time, 29. But last year, for the first time, we passed the bill out of a committee for the first time in Montana. 2 weeks later, it passed the Arizona Senate, which it passed again this year in the Senate, 2 years in a row, before it was killed in the House and through some really dirty politics. And I'll tell you about that if you ever have time. We've passed, while it passed the Arizona Senate, it was waiting to go to the House. Arizona Governor Cartel Kate Hobbs, her butt was in Oman. What was the governor of Arizona doing in Oman? Anybody?
Weapon sales.
I wish it was as small as weapon sales. I wish it was. She was signing a defense treaty committing the Arizona National Guard to Oman's defense. Hold on. What doesn't work there? What can't the governor do?
She doesn't have the power to sign.
She doesn't have the power to sign treaties. So they called it an arrangement. So now the Arizona National Guard is committed to the common defense of Oman. The Sultan of Oman has more right to the use of the Arizona National Guard than we as Americans do on our southern border to stop fentanyl or whatever their talking words are today. It's disgusting and it has to stop. But we are winning. I want you guys to know we are winning. Woo! We're not alone in this fight. We have some good advocates from the Republican Liberty Caucus, which is what I like to call the Libertarians in disguise, working within the Republican Party. They took over the committee process and got Defend the Guard put on the statewide primary ballot this March. So the state of Texas got to vote on Defend the Guard, and it passed with 83% support.
Whoa.
It outperformed Donald Trump on the Texas primary ballot. We beat him by like 80,000 votes. In 2023, the Libertarian Party National Committee formally adopted Defend the Guard Act as part of its platform. And this is by a country mile the most successful legislative movement that the LP has had in a while. I am proud to have you guys endorsing this as part of your national platform. Your support has made Defend the Guard the most important non-interventionist legislative movement in the 21st century. And that credit belongs to some very hardworking, groundworking soldiers within the Mises Caucus who have provided us with volunteers who've done phone banking, door knocking. They've testified on behalf of the bill. They organize, they recruit, and they've proven that confrontational politics is effective when it's applied properly. And when enough concentrated resources and a little bit of laser focus, we can defeat the war party. But there's still so much more to do. I'm gonna listen. This is gonna be a little bit of tough love right here, and then I'm gonna wrap up. When the Libertarian Party loses, it's not because the system's rigged. It's simply because libertarians don't care enough to act. Act. The hardest step in any mission is the first step. Most people in politics can't do this. That's it. That first step builds synergy and movement and energy, confidence, motivation. Most libertarians, and these are my people, we would rather talk about liberty than fight for it. Right? The ones in this room, I think, are the exception. Right? You're here because you are engaged. How many of those 50 fair signups? Was that the number 50 from the last fair? How many are here from that group? Pure sign up for fair 1, 2. Okay. It's not bad. It's not bad. 2 out of 50. This country is not going to get fixed with more podcasts or retweets or social media posts or likes or comments, all of which are important. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying they're wrong. It's going to get fixed when a determined group of patriots decide to step up and get off the sidelines and take serious action in the political sphere. Bring Our Troops Home has demonstrated more than any other organization that we have both the principles and the tactics to achieve victory. Particularly, victory on the Libertarians' most important issue in your party, war and peace. Remember what the Libertarian Party was founded on. I'm not suggesting that any of you give up 40 hours a week or hundreds of thousands of dollars. If anybody has 100, you give up, no, I'm not turning it down. All I need is the bare minimum effort that demonstrates that you care about what you're talking about. And if you're not willing to do that, why are we even in this room? Is the rules debate and the comment show last night and the selection of delegates, was it that good that brought you here for 3 or 4 days at a time? I don't know. True effort, though, can be through any monthly financial donation, a few hours a month, volunteering for a phone banking with Diego, my director of field operations. Who's worked with Diego in here before? Anybody? Couple guys, right? Diego's amazing. He may be the most singularly focused person I've ever met in my life. His tism is just. We have flipped entire communities with the pressure of about a dozen people making phone calls the week before a committee hearing. We have no support in the committee, zero. And with about a dozen volunteers giving them about 2 weeks, 2 hours each the week before, we flipped the entire committee. All they have to do is just follow Diego's training and what he teaches, and we're adding on some better tools because Diego's doing it with no money, no budget. We finally bought him some stuff that he can use. So I'm not here to shame anybody. It's not my gig. But if you're not willing to support the most important anti-war movement in the United States, probably shouldn't be a libertarian. This state has sired some of the greatest turn-of-the-century anti-war Americans from yesteryear. And here's where a little bit of guilt comes from. I don't want them looking down from whatever place they're at in the universe and being ashamed of my performance. Right? I hope that hurt a little bit. But if you are willing and ready to enlist the movement, my team's ready to do the work. We are the only national organization whose primary focus is pass and defend the guard. If you give us the time and the effort and the resources, we'll do all the heavy lifting. And just to give you an idea of how lean and efficient we are, with just $20 from every person in this room, we could fund efforts in more than a dozen states. Because we don't take salaries, we don't spend money on advertising. Everything you see is paid for out of private, t-shirts, buttons, everything. It's all important stuff, but none of it really is as important as the effort. Victory is possible, peace is within our grasp. All I need from libertarians is to reach out and grab a hold of the rope because I'm going to pull you along. And the more people that are hanging on, the stronger I get. We want you in the movement. We want someone to step up and help pull that rope. But until you're ready to do that, I'll pull you along. I'll bring you. Please, at some point today, go to www.defendtheguard.us and click on Minnesota. Click on your state. Our bill sponsor is there, and then a couple people that have sponsored it but done nothing. You'll see their pictures there. But that's not what's important. What's important is if you go there, there's a petition that you can sign. Put your name on it, because when time comes, I print out every single petition and I deliver them to the legislature. So when they get 1,000 petitions from people in their district, they know, oh my God, this is a real thing, right? You have to give them the language that they understand. What do politicians understand? What languages? There's two of them.
Money and votes.
Power. What was that?
Money and power.
Money and power,
Money involves.
pain and pleasure.
Right.
And I am not in the business of giving pleasure to any politician. We deliver one thing, pain. So go there, sign that petition, and in fact, if you want to, you can do it on your phone right after our next speaker is done speaking. Because you're not gonna do it while she's speaking, that would be rude. So together, the Libertarian Party and Bring Our Troops Home can defeat the war party and restore a sound U.S. foreign policy that no longer has the capability to use a strike-first replacement of diplomacy. Join me. Join the United States Senate candidate from the North Star State, Rebecca Whiting.
Woo!
Join Tuesday Hawthorne. Join the veterans who are carrying the torch for liberty, who are fighting for you here in your own state. They're your neighbors right now. And together we can defend the guard and we can restrain the U.S. foreign war policy. Thank you.
I hate to make more announcements, but we have more announcements. Tomorrow morning, please bring your badge with you back down here. Credentialing table is going to be opening at 8:15. The breakfast buffet opens at 8:30. If you want to get into this room and vote tomorrow, please present your badge to the credentialing committee in the morning. Also, we have some lovely silent auction items. If you would like to examine them between now and tomorrow afternoon, that would be awesome. Thank you.
Every time it's back on.
What?
Sorry, I was caught in a moment. Have our next speaker, Karen and Harlan.
Woo!
I'll let you know, James, when
Okay.
I don't need them right away.
All right, I'm
Just-
trying to figure out how to get the. Oh, it looks like it's turning back on, just very slowly. Okay.
Okay,
All right, we're good.
and can I take this off, because I don't like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Place. Okay. And the last speaker reminded me, if you got kids, I'm known to be a bit salty, so I'm just fair warning. I'll try to keep safe for work and family, but no promises. Family. Yeah, I'm just saying, I go off script a lot, and that tends to be when, I've got a script, but it's probably not help.
Grown up work.
It's probably not gonna help. So most of you, know me well. I can't decide for you whether that's good or bad. It's probably one or the other. I'll leave that to your judgment, but I'm the current third term LNC secretary. I am rerunning for a fourth term. God help my soul. And I used to be a former Region 1 representative. A lot of people don't know that's how I started. Former 3-term National Platform Committee Chair. I'm the current national. God, there is something wrong with me. I'm the current National Bylaws Rules Committee Chair and then National Historical Preservation Committee Chair. LPCO Judicial Committee Chair. And as Robert Baratheon, said in Game of Thrones, titles, whatever. Including registered parliamentarian, which I guess that's what I was doing today. So I'm tickled pink, literally, to be talking to you today. And as I said, I started this off. Most of you know I can be spicy. I did tweet already again today, secession today on Twitter, as is my custom. But I think you're going to be surprised at my topic today. Most people are surprised. I first gave it in Kansas in 2021. And I have to tell you, at the end of it, grown-ass men were crying. Now, I'm not going to promise that grown-ass men will be crying today, but hey, that goal, it's a stretch goal. We'll see. People get surprised at what I'm going to talk about today because I usually either talk about party history or telling people that want vaccine mandates to
go entertain themselves with barbed objects, trying to be family friendly here. But I know my audience, I know when to say something and when not to say something. Well, maybe that's not true according to the 2021 LNC, but generally I know when to say something and not to say something. I'm getting better at it. But along those lines, I think as a party, we have a fundamental blind spot and communications problem. And I think most of us would agree with that. But it's particularly talking with normies. It's not always. But I think it happens enough that we need to take a look at it in a little bit of a different way. And where I'm going with this is, how do we handle people who need help? I think it's something we don't really think about that much. People, for instance, who have, let's say, disabilities that are obvious. We dwell with those people. And in Colorado, actually, on our bylaws committee, now, any of you have been on a bylaws committee, you know it's difficult. We had a guy who was literally legally blind, not just can't see very well. He was like literally blind, who helped with bylaws amendments. And the way we went out of our way to help him understand, and with his reading machine and everything, was just wonderful. We do great with people like that. But sometimes we don't do well with people who may have issues that are a little bit more invisible. And when I first gave this talk, what I was going to say, what I am going to say, I surprised a lot of people, but since I've been pretty vocal about this, but at the time it was surprising to a lot of people, considering how much I've accomplished in my life. I have autism, and not in the libertarian way that everyone in this room has. I mean it quite literally, diagnosed with autism. And I was diagnosed very, very late in life, as a lot of girls are, because it used to think it was something that just boys got. And it made my life make a whole lot more sense. And this has actually caused a lot of problems, some of them quite public. At the time that I initially got my diagnosis, I thought that my biggest support would come from my libertarian family. Oh, no, that didn't happen. In fact, that was probably the worst experience that I've had since coming to terms with making of the rest of my life. Trying to get to the next page here. Hold on. Might need to lick it. It's gonna be kind of gross. It's stapled. I should have done that. Okay. So I had someone literally on the LNC said that I was making up that sweet, sweet autism diagnosis that I know we all want, just so that I could be an asshole to people, not realizing I didn't really need an autism. Because social skills can often be a blind spot. In Colorado, not people who are currently involved with the party, I was told your autism is not my problem. I don't have to understand you. I don't have to work with that. Let me get a little segue here. And she didn't know I was going to do this, so if this being live streamed, I hope she hears this. The current chairwoman of Colorado is Hannah Goodman. She's running for vice chair of the LNC. She did something that no one else had ever done. She and I didn't get along at first, but she couldn't understand why, because she was well respected in the party. She didn't know how to take me, but you want to know what this one did? She went out of her way to find someone in her past that she knew had autism. And she sat down and talked with this man for a couple hours. He said, there's this lady I know. She does this, she does that. And this friend of hers explained to her how I see the world. And ever since then, Hannah's been my best friend. At least like in LPCO. Very few people do that. She's like, I used to take you this way. But now I understand how you see the world. And oh my goodness, like I was getting upset and offended over things that you probably wouldn't even know, and I didn't. And that happens quite a bit to those of us. I'm sure there are a few diagnosed people. There's a lot of undiagnosed people in this room, but I'm sure there's quite a few diagnosed people as well. But most libertarians are not like Hannah, so be like Hannah. That's my advice to you. If that's all you get today, be like Hannah. If someone was blind, like the person I mentioned before, my friend in LPCO, would you ever say to them, your blindness isn't my problem, sucks that you walked into that wall? We would never, ever do that. But we do that as libertarians with a lot of other things. And I don't know, there probably is self libertarians that might say that. Let's not talk about that. But here's what's wonderful about this talk, and if I manage to get through this part without getting emotional, it'll be the first time. After I give these types of talks, I have mothers who come up to me and say, wow, you're the national secretary of this, you're that. I have hope now for my autistic child, particularly the girls. And even if the girls aren't autistic, there's nothing I love better than the little girls come up to me because they don't see people like me model too much in politics. And I'm not into the identity politics thing, but I think we're fooling ourselves if you think identity doesn't matter. Identity does matter. Our identity doesn't, as libertarians, matter. Like we should know that right then, that obviously identity matters, at least in some way. So the way I'm going to start this talk, where did I get that? And this is Memphis. The way I usually start this talk is, okay, welcome to Libertarian Thunderdome, bitches, because that's where we're going. That's where this is going. Because isn't that how it usually is? We scare people. I mean, we scare each other, but we scare normies. At least we often do. And I don't think we wonder enough why. I think we just usually assume they're stupid. But that isn't why we scare normies. And I don't think our ideas are scary. I think they're beautiful. But I think we need to understand why normies do find this legitimately scary. And let me just tie the intro into a bow and I'll get to explain it. And the reason why normies find us scary is because there are vulnerable people in this world. There's a lot of vulnerable people in this world. So now's audience participation time. To me, this is the funniest. One group kind of failed it, so don't be that group. Because then I make an example of you next talk, and you know I'll do that too. So I'm going to ask you not to overthink this. Will be you in a moment here, but before we get to that, I'm asking you not to overthink this. Say you are talking to a normie about libertarianism for the first time. What is the very first objection that they give you?
The roads.
First one. A JPEG one, I guess. So there we go. Just when I think I have a convinced, yes. But who will build the roads? Why? I never thought about why that's the first thing. The very first thing. And I actually think this who will build the roads is a really important question. And it got me thinking. Why is everyone asking about this? Do we just in America have some kind of really bizarre kiki road fetish that just seems to come out at the oddest time in conversations? It's this like that weird trend that you might have heard about where women all suddenly start asking their significant male others how many times you think about ancient Roman today, and then they're surprised when it's like 50. You know, are most Americans just like, man, those fucking roads. You know, you just I don't think it's that, though I do think men do think about ancient Rome quite a bit. I actually think about ancient but I don't think I'm libertarian to walk around every time of the day thinking about roads. So it made me think there's no way that that is really our objection. But we act like it is. So let's do it too. This is how we act. When people, we're like, fuck your roads. That's the way we act. I just love that. Look on that guy's face. I'm just like, yeah. I think most of us, if you want that, email me. It's fun to post on Twitter. But we act like people who disagree with us are so stupid that they walk into wall space first. And we need to realize that not stupid, they just disagree. And it would behoove us to find out where the real disagreement is. And I'm going to tell you, it's not about roads. So obviously they're asking something else, even if they didn't even know it themselves that they're asking something else. You know, couples can get into a fight, and it's over something like, I don't know, then the spoon in the dishwasher or something, and they have this massive fight and might even get divorced. The fact is, it's not really about that spoon, it's about the hundreds of things that led up to that, and it was just the straw that broke the camel's back. Couples know that most fights aren't really about what you're fighting about, they're about something else. And I think that's the same thing about roads. There's something deeper going on here, and it's certainly not about stupid ass roads, dumbass bitches. So anyway, the way we usually respond is we go through the same people that are building them now, the public schools. You know, that's normally what we do. But if that is not what they're really asking, how do you think that condescending tone comes across? Large Rose, who's somebody I respect, had a really, really good video on this, and I'm not trying to throw shade on him because obviously I do respect him, but he does exactly that. He just gets all mocking about it's the same people that would build them now, but he comes really close to the truth when he stops mocking. So what I'm saying here is maybe you should step back, and think if they're asking a different legitimate question, even though what on the surface sounds really dumb. So what are they really asking if they're not asking about roads? And I've become convinced that asking who will build the roads, what they're really asking, it's a stand-in, is they are asking what they're asking. Let me go back there. I want to make sure I don't screw up. And here we go. They're not asking who will build the roads. I'm old. They're asking who will keep old people from dying in the streets. I think that's what they're really asking. And if that is what they're really asking, what kind of utter douchebags do we sound like by going dirty dirt and people who are living down? If they're really asking something much more fundamental than a flat thing that's made of asphalt, that they're asking about vulnerable old people and who's going to take care of them. For some reason, they latched onto roads as the symbol for that, but that is not what they're really asking. And we should be minded culture changers. We're peaceful revolutionaries. We're political influencers, if you want to use the terms of the day. So you need to be listening not to what people are actually saying, but what they mean by what they're saying. And we do this already in life. When you hear somebody say it's raining cats and dogs outside, if you grab a cat, you're stupid. You grab an umbrella. So when people ask you about the roads, realize that they're not really asking you about the roads. And there are some people out there that aren't invincible. They're not good faith. I think we all probably just thought of a bunch of people, maybe perhaps in the Libertarian Party right now when I said that. But there are people that have good-hearted good faith objections. And if we deal with what they're really asking, we're showing some respect. And I think we need to show that more respect. So going back to that Larkin Rose video, when I said he almost got it. After the mockery, he got really serious and he said, well, the governments don't build and own all the grocery stores. But, you know, most Americans eat too much. We obviously aren't all starving, even though the government isn't doing that. So obviously the government doesn't have to do everything for something to happen. And he was so close to the real point that I wish he connected the dots. And I wish this term is oft used badly, but I'm going to use it hopefully well. I wish he said the quiet part out loud. As an analogy, if any of you have been sick or meet somebody who's been terminally ill, sometimes all they want the doctor to tell them is the truth. They want to know they have cancer and have 6 months to live. They don't want to hear the platitudes. Even if they're scared to ask it, the doctor does them a favor if by compassionately they tell them the truth. People want us to say the quiet parts out loud rather than leaving them guessing. So they're already thinking about it. So we might as well say it. So this might be a bit of a rabbit trail. There was a young lady, I think it was Sarah, who was running for LR. She mentioned her faith. I'm a Christian. I'm going to use a lot of biblical examples in my talk. I don't do that to judge non-Christians. I'm not one of those preachy types. I don't think only Christians are good people. It just happens to be the background I come from. And if I knew the Quran as well, I probably would vote from the Quran because I think nearly every religion religion's the collective wisdom of men. I mean, I obviously believe Christianity is true, but I think there's truth to be found everywhere. I'm just warning you. I'm going to give you. I'm going to give you some Bible. Okay, please don't get offended. So there's something my pastor once said. Said when an asshole becomes a Christian, it doesn't stop being an asshole. He just becomes an asshole alive. And that can be worse. But there's a real funny book, if you're a Christian, get it, called Stuff Christians Alive. And particularly if you're evangelical, you will just laugh. You will laugh because it's fun. So my evangelical brothers and sisters here will know of the prayer circle. We all just hold hands and you get into prayer, and one of you starts. And you know, you're just gonna be pouring your heart out to God. And the first guy starts and he says, God, please forgive me. I don't pray enough. You dirty heathen. I mean, it's like the worst thing you could say. So in this book, Stuff Christians Life, he encourages you to do something if you're ever a prayer circle. He said, give the gift of going first. When you're first in the prayer circle, say it's really wrong. Say, you know what, man, if you're like in a men's group, I'm really addicted to porn and I don't know what to do. Say something real for once. Don't do all of this phonies. So, you know, maybe enough, but that's the deal number themselves. So we as Libertarians start conversations when we're really thinking, then you will start having some conversations. Giving the going first. Say the things that other people are scared to say. So the same principle is here. So let's go back to that grocery store example. The answer is obvious. Why we don't all starve even though government doesn't build grocery stores? It's because it benefits all of us. We all need to eat. So obviously we're not just gonna, sit home and starve. We will make sure that we eat. So when the non-libertarian asked about the roads and bundling a lot of issues on the symbolism of roads, they're doing something called a synecdoche. I think that's how it's pronounced, where it's like a part for a whole. Like if somebody says slow and steady wins the race, immediately your mind goes to the whole story about the rabbit and the hare, and I don't have to do the whole story. That's what they're doing. They're doing a type of shorthand. So we have unbundled their sin. We need to answer their question like, how are we going to keep people grandma dying in the streets? But I'm going to go further because I don't even think the question is who will keep people from dying in the streets. I think the question is why would anyone keep old people from dying in the streets? We know why we have grocery stores because we all need to eat, but charity doesn't work that way. At least you're not supposed to admit get anything out of doing charity. It's supposed to be something you do selflessly. So why would there be charity when you don't obviously get something from it? Isn't that weird the way we went from who will build the roads to why would there even be charity at all? Because obviously there's going to be roads we all need to drive. But we all care about your grandma as much as you may love your grandma. So we need to answer these types of questions. So why would the vulnerable be cared for if there was no compulsion for anyone to do it? I am convinced that is the underlying question of almost every objection that you will hear from a non-libertarian. Because everyone understands mutually beneficial exchange. So we like to pretend like this libertarian thunderdome isn't a possibility. We like to pretend you sprinkle some liberties over everything, and all of a sudden the world's basket is of puppies. We like to pretend like libertarian dystopia isn't possible. But think about it a second, I'm sure you've been to Facebook. Have you ever been to a libertarian group on Facebook? Libertarian dystopia is really possible. I won't even go to Facebook anymore. So that's pretty obvious to you. And there's a lot of other times, like even in our own party, we see how we treat each other. Now, I'm really into the philosophy. Some of you guys might be consequentialists. I'm what's called the hard ecologist, which means do what is right where the sky may fall. But the fact is, I wouldn't be so eager to promote our philosophy if I really did think it was inevitable that we're not be dying in the streets. But I do think it's possible. And I think we need to recognize that it's possible. And here's another thing. We love to go on about the non-aggression. I love to go on with the non-aggression principle. But the thing is, like Christians who sometimes talk to non-Christians, when we talk to non-libertarians, you don't speak our language. Do you think that the average person that you go and talk to sees themselves as an aggressor? And do you certainly think they see somehow making sure grandma gets fed as aggression? They don't. And we need to just stop throwing these words at them and start connecting the dots to them. Because we sound like arcane moon bats, to be honest with you. I mean, literally, I remember the first time I ran across libertarian ideas. I'm kind of embarrassed. I used to mock this guy mercilessly. But that's how we sound. So we need to understand from their point of view, they do not see themselves as aggressors. And what they see our view as is a stark survival of the fittest. They see our view as nature, red in tooth and claw. And want to know something? There might be some guys in this room that see themselves as pretty fit, but most people don't. Most people do not see themselves as the fittest. And here's where things get really, really real. You want to know who really doesn't see themselves as the fittest? Women, minorities. And we wonder why we don't have more women or minorities in the party. It is because our meetings are a sausage fest. I'm going to tell you something, guys. Women like being where there's a lot of guys. Amen. So it's not because we have too many men in the party. I'm sorry that you guys have been meant to feel that. But it's because women don't know how they would fare in our world. I had a friend who used to go to the party, used to pick up chicks. So it's the opposite problem. So it's not there's too many men in the party. You need more men in the party. You need more women in the party. But the truth is, and the comedian last night made me really laugh because I know I've been talking about some of this a bit, is that they just don't understand how they survive in our society. Because I'm only going to speak about women because I'm not a minority. I can't speak for them. But up until very recently, women were very, very vulnerable. There's very little more vulnerable than being pregnant and having to raise a helpless child. And they're thinking of our world. What would happen to me? And what would happen to my children? So if they think we're doing a survival of the fittest, they know damn well they're not the fittest. And they know that their vulnerable children are not the fittest. So we're going to even get more granular. The question isn't why would vulnerable people be protected. When you're dealing with most people, their question is, who's going to protect me? Most people don't want to say that loud because they think it's selfish, but that is what they're thinking. You know, the whole move to Somalia. Who's going to protect me from the warlords that we all know? I mean, we all know that, right? Like, if libertarians got their way, warlords are going to take over. Who's going to protect me from the warlords? So we went from roads to who's going to protect me from sociopaths. But I do think that's the real question, because there is evil in this world. And we have to be able to confront that. I do think people are fundamentally good, but there are some people in this world that are just very evil. We should know that. We can't ignore that. And people worry about this with us, which is funny because those people are actually been literally putting the sociopath in positions of power so that they can have power over the rest of us. But they don't see that. So they're wondering how they are going to be protected. And I've joked before, and I think we all know, like, the best jokes are the ones that have a grain of truth in them. I became a libertarian in a strange way. I did not become a libertarian in Murray Rothbard. I didn't become a libertarian. If you want to know, I became a libertarian. I was arguing on Facebook. And I wanted to get out of an argument really quick because they were arguing about putting spice under overpasses to keep homeless people from sleeping there. And I was arguing with some fellow Christians. If you think libertarians are bad, no. Okay, get involved in the church. I can't even imagine like a church board meeting. That's got to be pretty brutal. Somebody's getting crucified. But so to get out of conversation quickly, because I used to belong to a Calvary chapel, and at Calvary chapel, at least when you accept Jesus into your heart, you all accept the Republican Party in your heart. That's the way it is. So I was arguing with these people, and they told me, I'll wear that. And that's right there, that ain't happening. So in order to get out of the conversation, I said, no, I'm more libertarian because it's word heard, and I thought it was kind of cool. But the last time, it's rather the last time I used an expression that I thought was really cool in a theology debate forum, it turned out like really obscene, and I just didn't know it. And I was calling myself something. I'll do it. Okay, I call myself a hose beast. I didn't know what it meant. So it was in Wayne's World.
Yeah, that's what does it actually mean? I have no idea.
Think about it a second.
Oh,
So I played this rock. Yeah, so since the last time I used the word, I didn't know what it meant. I was not calling myself something. I call yourself a Christian forum. I went and looked up Libertarian. I found LP.org, read the plot. My husband was on lunch break. I only got through the preamble and the statement of principles, and the next browser window I opened up was my voter registration material. So I became a for it's like 10 to 15 minutes simply by reading the plot. But here's the joke part of that. I didn't meet another libertarian for about 3 months. And thank the Lord, because if I had, I would have ran away screaming. I didn't know any other libertarians. All I knew was the platform, and our platform is a thing of beauty. When I finally started to meet libertarians, it was too late. I was already sucked in. And plus, when you first join the party, we're almost like a cult. And it's not in a bad, well, I think maybe it's that way, but it's not a compliment. But we have to love bomb the people because we always know that they're not going to stay. Usually we're going to work them to death and they're going to run away. And then the ones that stay, then they start true face. And that is what cults do. That's not a compliment. Probably should not be doing that. So by the time I got to know a bunch of libertarians, I was already hooked up. There was just no way out of it. And what we refuse to recognize as libertarians is that there can be a bad use of rights. We think just because you have a right to do something, wow, you're a hero. And what I like to say is just because you have a right to do something doesn't make it right to do. And we do not recognize that at all. So let me ask you the question. I'm going to give you, this is going to be a question that's going to make you very uncomfortable. But in Libertopia, could you put up a sign in your window that says no blocks allowed?
yes.
Yes. Is that the right thing to do? But are you a fucking asshole? And that's what we need to recognize. The fact is, there will be perfectly libertarian jerks. We know a bunch of perfectly libertarian jerks. I don't know why we don't recognize this more. Libertopia, and that is what the normies are scared about. Just because someone does think they have a right to do does not make them a saint or a hero. The Westboro Baptist Church has every right to go and protest these funerals, but they are not free speech heroes. I'll defend their right to it, but they're not good people. And sometimes as libertarians, we have a real hard time separating that out. And it's edge, the edge, what's a edgelord, is that the word? I keep forgetting it. So while we defend their right to be a fucking asshole, we need to also defend the right to tell them to kiss our libertarian asses. Both of those are equally important. And we forget that. We forget that there are a lot of ugly things in this world that aren't good for us. And I think we need to come to terms with that. So just because we don't think that should be illegal doesn't mean that it's right, something that we should ignore. We're not going to win politically until we win social. And I know I am opening 10 forms, I don't care. I think we are a political, we're a social movement disguised as a political party. And if anything we should have learned from movements that maybe we didn't agree with the whole thing, take a movement like Delta. I know some people hate them, some people love them, some people have mixed feelings about them. But as a social movement, they did more in their short time of prominence in getting discussion towards their issues than we have done in 50 years. They went from zero to fund the police in like 18 months. Like, it's whether you agree with that position or not doesn't matter. And so we need to start becoming much more active socially, in my opinion. But the problem is, a lot of us would rather wear knickers than say an actual libertarian thing out loud. We'll say it here, but we act like only we can handle it and our neighbors can't. You're not that bad. You're not better than neighbors. If you can handle it, your neighbors can't. If you're that scared of liberty and that scared of talking about liberty, why are you a libertarian? So it's a balancing act. We need to embrace a culture of life. And I'm not even talking about the abortion thing, I just mean in general, living the full life and beauty and aesthetics. Because freedom is beautiful and we often make it ugly. And people aren't attracted to ugliness. This is a point we have to understand if we're going to be good messengers of liberty. And here is something that I cannot go thinker. Non-aggression is a necessary but not wholly sufficient precondition for flourishing. You could have a completely non-aggressive society that would be an absolute hellhole that you would never want to live in. It could be full of people that have no black slap on their business windows. Have they aggressed against anyone? No. But if you were a black person, would you want to live there? No. So we need to understand that libertarianism is not a complete moral philosophy. It's a minimum theory of justice, and we have to bring more. And when we bring more, I'm not trying to go all up. The is what brings us together here is our. It's perfectly fine to disagree, divide on issues. I'm not hiding something very important to the discussion that libertopia, we are going to divide into our own communities of practice, and there's nothing wrong with that. And we need to stop trying to force that in here, because I think that's part of the reason of our fighting. We just need to realize, what binds us together is non-aggression, nothing else. You might prefer more traditional lifestyle, you might prefer more heated lifestyle. We all just don't want the government involved. So we should go back being a bare bones political party. I think the libertarianism is what's tearing us apart. So I want us to succeed. So I want us to have some beauty in our message that tells the Muslim there's something in it for them, that tells the black person there's something in it for them, that tells the women, that tells the men, that tells everybody that it's something in it for them. That might not be what I want, but it's okay for you to want it. And our message will start to become a lot more appealing to people. One thing libertarianism is not, yeah, I am speaking specific situations, and I've already pissed all these people off, so I don't care. One thing libertarian is not is walking around telling everyone who disagrees with you that they're Nazis and racists. That is one thing that libertarianism is not. That really hit closer. All right. So to reach the world, we need to go from ideology, which we all agree upon, into praxeology, because too often we have children, and the way I put it is we are children playing at anarchy and someone else is dying. It's often like they say the West was built on Christian foundation, and now we're destroying that foundation, so we're like using capital we didn't build, whether you agree with that or not. I think at times we do that as well. It's easy for us to talk our talk when we know when we go home, we'll let the light switch on, the lights are still be on. But normies worry about that. So we need to start thinking about the practical solutions as well, because they're going to ask that. So I'm going to end with a quote again from Bible, as I warned you. So I gave you plenty of time to prepare. But I think it's apropos. And it's a quote from St. Paul. Christian will know this. And St. Paul said, when I was a child, I spoke as a child. I thought as a child and I acted as a child. But when I became a man, I put away my childish things. At the party, we need to grow to ourselves and put away our childish things and become men. And I mean that, and Well, what's a man? We could get into that, I suppose, but I think adult, let's just put it that way. We need to accept that if our message is going to succeed, the good people among us need to realize in a very real way, we are a brother's keeper. We need to not just be these isolated islands, because that's just not the full and beautiful human life. You can be a hermit, but that really, I think, is what we were made for. We were made to live in a community of our choices. So I am going to end on one thing, and again, it's another religious thing, but it's a hint that I like to close with. Ignore like the God part if you're not into that. But it's something that I think will help us, and it builds on the last message we talked about. Our most important message is peace and not war. So again, those of you Christians will recognize this, and it's just the first or maybe second verse, where it's a prayer God that says, "Maybe a channel of your peace, where there is despair in life, let me bring hope. Where there is darkness, only light, and where there is sadness, ever joy. Oh, Master, grant that I can ever seek so much to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved and to love, to be loved as to love for my soul." Our message is beautiful. Let's start presenting it that way and understand that we have to care about vulnerable people if we want people to care about liberty. Thank you.
Things you can maybe consideration about yourself.
I would like to give a thought. Okay, I had two things I had to remember. Oh yeah, cash bar is open. And also, can you please make sure that you take all your stuff with you at your table out of the room when you leave this evening, when you come back in the morning, because nobody misses a Sunday on a convention. So everybody that's here is coming back in the morning, right? Woo! Bring your stuff. Anyway, oops. Is there anything else?
I'm gonna be in the hospital the next need to get access first.
Okay. And then, yeah, good job, guys.
Yes.
See you back in the morning.
Here.